I'm sitting here in a hospital room, trying to wrap my head around everything that's happened in the past 24 hours. Yesterday, around 7:30 a.m., my wife Mari and I were in a car accident. I came away with just a few cuts and bruises, but Mari didn't get off so easy. She has a crushed shoulder, a broken collarbone, 3 broken ribs, and a collapsed lung. Doctors expect her to recover, but for now, she's heavily sedated. I'm typing this on my phone, and while it's exhausting, I just need to get it all out. It's difficult to even start explaining the hurt I'm going through. Our marriage hasn't been perfect lately, but I never expected something like this. We've known each other since we were kids, dated through high school and college, and got married a year after graduation. She's the only woman I've ever been with, and until recently, I thought I could say the same for her. We have 2 kids, Michael and Carrie, who mean everything to me. Thankfully, they weren't in the accident. They were with my parents for the night. It's hard to reconcile everything I'm feeling. The accident was one thing, but then I found out my wife has been unfaithful. I feel empty, like part of me is missing, and the worst part is that she's lying just a few feet away from me. I can't look at her the same, and it's tearing me apart. For the past few months, I'd felt us drifting apart, but I had no idea this was why. We were supposed to be on a flight to Florida yesterday for a cruise, but that's obviously canceled. The night before, she'd gone out with her best friend, Rebecca, and I'd asked her not to go out in the snow. She insisted they'd just be having a couple of drinks before our trip. The night my life turned upside down, I had gone to bed after Mari went out with her best friend, Rebecca, for what was supposed to be a final get-together before our cruise. I had urged her not to go because of the snowstorm, but she reassured me they'd only have a few drinks. I slept soundly until around 5 a.m. When I got up and noticed her car wasn't parked outside, I figured she might have stayed at Rebecca's due to the weather. I texted her, telling her not to drive and that I'd come pick her up, but that message went unread. If she'd read that message, maybe I'd still be oblivious, living with that gnawing feeling that something was off but never really knowing why. But the reality hit me hard that morning. When I arrived at Rebecca's condo, her front door was unlocked, so I went in. I expected to find Mari on the couch, or maybe asleep in the guest room. What I found, though, shattered me. I walked into the guest room and saw 2 heads peeking out from under the covers. My wife was lying there, resting her head on the chest of a shirtless guy I didn't recognize. The rest was a blur. I remember yanking the comforter back and the sudden rush of fury that overtook me. The next thing I knew, Rebecca, Mari, and this stranger were prying me off him. I don't know what I did in that moment, but apparently, it was enough that it could have landed me in jail if they hadn't stopped me. That part of me doesn't regret it, though. The betrayal hit so deep that I can't feel sorry for any reaction I had in that moment. The guy left quickly, mumbling he'd take his friend to the hospital. I told Mari she had 5 minutes to get in the car, or forget coming home at all. She got in within 3. On the drive, I was filled with rage and heartbreak. But then an oncoming car veered into our lane, forcing us into a guardrail. Our car rolled, and I came out with a few bruises, but Mari didn't fare as well. Her injuries are serious, but she'll recover. It feels surreal, almost like some messed up metaphor, as if the accident was just a physical manifestation of the wreckage of my life. I haven't told anyone, not even our kids. It feels like too much to drag them into, but I know I'll have to tell them about the wreck eventually. I feel numb but somehow still in pain. A pain much deeper than any from the accident. Right now, Mari's lying in a hospital bed, and I'm flooded with questions that I'm terrified to ask because I don't want to hear the answers. The person I thought I knew seems like a stranger, and I'm lost trying to figure out what comes next. It's painfully clear that Mari no longer loves me. No one who genuinely loves someone could betray them like this. Now, I find myself questioning if she ever truly loved me at all. And even if she did, would I ever want her love back after this? To me, the moment she cheated, our marriage was over. The vows were broken. I don't need a divorce attorney to tell me that. She's already nullified our marriage, and I no longer feel bound to those vows. Part of me wants to walk out of this room, call her parents, and tell them what happened. I want to hand her over to them and say she's their problem now. We vowed for better or for worse, and I meant every word of that. But in my eyes, we're no longer married. Another part of me just wants to leave her a note, saying that too bad worse happened to come after you ended things. The only thing keeping me here is my children. I miss them so badly right now, but I don't want them to see me like this, with scratches on my face and neck. I feel like Mari has dishonored herself, our family, and everything we built together. But I know my kids need her. They'll have questions, hurts, and needs that I'm not qualified to handle on my own. As much as I'm a good father, I can't be both parents. How do I sit here, looking after someone who's betrayed me so deeply. Do I call her parents to come? If they see me, they'll know I'm furious, and I'm not sure what to tell them or my children. I can explain the car accident, but I'm terrible at hiding my emotions. They'll know something's wrong between their mother and me. It feels like everything has crumbled in a single day. I know I need to speak to a lawyer, that much is clear, but I have no idea how to navigate any of this. After my first post, I stayed one more night in the hospital room, watching her sleep under the dim lights, listening to the machines. Part of me felt like I was giving her mercy just by staying there. But the other part, the part that's still broken, realized I still had lingering love for her. I hate that I feel anything positive toward her. That night, I came to grips with the reality that there's no repairing this. It's like a natural disaster wiped out the life we'd built. I cried harder than I've ever cried, knowing that part of my life was truly over. When the nurse came in to take her blood, it only underscored the permanence of that moment. The next morning, I quietly left the hospital room when Mari woke up. She saw me heading out and called after me, but I pretended not to hear. I grabbed some breakfast and attempted to distract myself, although I didn't have much of an appetite. As I scanned through my phone, I noticed a text from Becca asking where Mari was, which I ignored. Around 7 a.m., I decided it was late enough to head to Mari's parents' place. Her dad was usually up early, so I planned to talk to him first, and if he thought his wife should know, he could wake her. I saw smoke rising from the wood stove in his workshop out back, so I knocked before entering. When he saw the bruises on my face and scratches on my neck, he assumed I'd come to explain the accident. He woke my mother-in-law, so they could both hear what had happened. We sat in the kitchen, and I described how, on a curve, an oncoming car had veered into our lane. I managed to keep control until we hit the guardrail, but the impact on Mari's side was brutal. Despite her injuries, I assured them she was stable and would recover fully. They were both emotional, grateful she was alive. They offered to help care for her, which was when I told them the wreck wasn't the real reason I had come to talk. I explained waking up that morning, checking on her, and walking in on her with a man I'd never met. They were both shocked. I told them Mari's hospital room number, hoping they would still play a part in our kids' lives, as my dad was watching them for the moment. I then told them that I planned to divorce Mari, as she'd broken our vows, and that I'd be heading to my dad's next to tell the kids about the wreck and that we wouldn't be together anymore. I assured them I wouldn't tell the kids about her infidelity. While I regretted how things had to end, I was relieved that I hadn't been the one to break our marriage. They tried to tell me not to rush, to forgive her for a mistake, but I couldn't bear to hear the excuses. I smiled, told them I'd cherish them as in-laws, and walked out. When I arrived at my dad's, there was so much weighing on me. I found him in the kitchen, having a cup of coffee, and sat down to gather my thoughts before I explained everything to him. When I arrived, my dad, surprised to see me since he thought I was on a Caribbean trip, asked what I was doing there. I didn't say anything. I just hugged him and broke down. He sensed I needed to let it all out before explaining, so he guided me to the den and let me sit on the couch while he went to get my mom. Although we both urged her to grab a cup of coffee first, she knew that me showing up alone so early wasn't a good sign. Once we were all settled, I told them everything. Mari's infidelity, catching her with another man, and leaving Becca's. Then, I explained the accident and Mari's injuries, letting them know I'd informed her parents just an hour earlier so they could go see her. They were stunned. My mom finally asked, "What are you going to do now?" Both of them broke down when I said the only option left was divorce, and that I would focus on being the best father I could be. As we were finishing, I heard my daughter Carrie yell, "Daddy?" She came running down the stairs, which woke up my son too. I hadn't seen them in so long, and I was overwhelmed just holding them, hugging them, and enjoying every moment with them. They noticed my scratches after a while, so I gently explained there had been a wreck and that their mom was in the hospital but would be fine. I told them Mari's parents would eventually take them to see her and left it at that. I spent the whole day with my kids, talking, playing, and laughing. They reminded me why life was worth living. Honestly, before that, I'd been torn about moving forward, but they showed me they were worth living for, protecting, and cherishing. Later, texts started coming in from my mother-in-law's phone, which I suspected were from Mari, but I ignored them and eventually turned off notifications. The next day, I consulted with 3 law offices about filing for divorce. I'm not doing it just for a legal title. I want custody terms sorted and assets divided. What Mari does now is none of my concern. My focus is on maintaining joint custody, as the kids need both parents in their lives. But as far as Mari is concerned, she and I are done. I met with 2 lawyers so far and really like the second. I'll meet the third just to see if they impress me, but either way, This process ensures she won't have those top attorneys as options. The truth is, there's no reason for me to talk to her again. I thought I knew her, but it turns out I was wrong. So what's left to say? Next week, I'll be back at work, which everyone assumed would be right after our cruise. I haven't told anyone we didn't go or about the accident, and now I'll be showing up in a rental. I'm debating whether I need to mention anything to HR, but the last thing I want is for this to become office gossip. I already feel humiliated enough without having my personal life out for public consumption. Divorce is sometimes necessary, but it always feels like a failure. I'm done holding on to a marriage that was over the moment she cheated. For those who encouraged me to get checked for STDs, I did, and thankfully, everything came back clean. Even going through that screening was degrading, and it's infuriating considering I was the one who kept my vows. I assume Mari has been discharged from the hospital by now, and her parents likely took her in. They haven't contacted me, but that's because I haven't been reading Mari's texts. I just want the divorce papers filed and her served so I can put this mistake behind me. If I could go back, I'd choose someone else. Someone who actually knew what loyalty meant. She gave up the trust we built, and I realized now I meant nothing to her. I'll miss having someone I thought I could depend on, but that was all a lie, and I refused to swoon over a beautiful lie. Some people want to know the specifics about her affair, who it was, how long, why, but I don't. I'd rather not poison myself with that knowledge. In my mind, there is no justification for cheating. When you make a life commitment, that should be sacred, and to betray it is vile. If I could undo everything and never have met her, I would. She had no right to build a life with me, only to strip it away without my consent. The man I was before her betrayal is gone, and so is the woman I thought she was. My life now is like the ruins of a facade, and there's no use living in that illusion anymore. I managed to secure an excellent lawyer, Nadia, who is highly rated for representing men in divorce cases around here. She's taken on my case personally, and everyone at her firm has been incredibly supportive. It feels like more than just business. They genuinely seem to care about my well-being. After agreeing to take my case, Nadia and I went through the standard paperwork, listing assets, bank information, and income estimates. I also told her about the wreck and what I discovered before it. She asked if I had an STD panel done, which I had, and thankfully, it came back clean. Then, she asked if I had documented the infidelity, which I hadn't. I was too overwhelmed in that moment to think about getting proof. Nadia arranged for a private investigator to gather evidence, since we're in a fault-based state where I'll need concrete proof for the divorce to go in my favor. Nadia has even taken steps to keep the peace with Mari's family. One of her staff members is now handling communication with Mari's father, coordinating drop-offs and pickups. When she asked if I considered therapy for myself and the kids, I told her I was due to start my own sessions soon. She let me know that if my children needed support, she could recommend good therapists. Before I left her office, she gave me a checklist of tasks. One item was to pick up DNA kits for the kids, which didn't seem unusual at the time. Once we were home, I swabbed myself and the kids, mailed the samples off, and went about my routine. The results came in 2 days later, on Friday. I saw 2 emails from the lab and waited until I got back to my desk to open them. My heart was racing. I opened the first email. My son Michael is my biological son. Relieved, I moved to the next. But when I read it, I felt like I'd been struck by a truck. My daughter, Carrie, is not biologically mine. I stared at the result in disbelief, reading it again and again. Then, I forwarded the results to my personal email, closed everything, and barely made it to my car before breaking down. The pain was unimaginable, like a part of me had just been ripped away. This is something I never expected to face, and I still can't believe it's real. It truly felt like the life I'd known was ripped from me. My soul felt emptied. I sat there in my car, numb, hoping with everything in me that this nightmare would end. With no one I felt I could turn to, I forwarded the test results to Nadia, my lawyer. Seconds later, she called, asking where I was. Work was all I could manage. She told me to stay put, and that someone from her firm would pick me up soon. After hanging up, I opened the car door, and everything just poured out of me. I was dry heaving before it finally stopped. One of the paralegals arrived, led me to their car, and took me to the firm. When Nadia finished with a client, she brought me into her office. She spoke calmly, telling me that sometimes tests are wrong. She said I had every reason to feel devastated, but that we should run a second test in a controlled environment, just to be sure. She arranged everything for me to have Carrie tested the following day, knowing I couldn't live with this limbo. The next day, we went to a lab, and Carrie's grandparents picked her up right afterward. The day dragged by, but then the results came in. I had been dreading this, but a part of me still hoped for a different outcome. My heart shattered all over again when I read it. I wasn't Carrie's biological father. I felt broken beyond words. I sent the results to Nadia, who called to check on me. She urged me to be with family, not to go through this alone. I climbed into my car, barely able to see through the tears, and drove to my parents' house. The entire way, I couldn't stop crying. When I saw my mom, she didn't need an explanation to see something was wrong, but she waited. Finally, through choked breaths, I managed to say, "Carrie is not my daughter." My mom froze, but she knew she'd heard me. A heavy silence fell over us as I sat there, lost in grief. She eventually stood and called my dad, asking him to come home, only telling him to drive safely and to hurry. He got there within 20 minutes. And for hours, the three of us just held each other. We cried and tried to comfort each other, though there was nothing any of us could say to ease the pain. My parents eventually asked about Michael, and I assured them he was my son. For a moment, that small piece of certainty offered a little solace. But even that couldn't fill the void of loss I was feeling. When I first told my parents the results, they were relieved Michael was mine, though they felt guilty for feeling that way. They asked me what I intended to do, and all I could say was that, no matter what, Carrie would be taken care of. I'd support her needs and most of her wants. She's completely innocent in this, and I can't just abandon her, even if it's complicated. I didn't know yet if I could, or even should, try to seek custody, but the questions wouldn't leave me alone. Did Mari know? Did she suspect? I needed answers. When I met Nadia on Monday, she'd already arranged for a private investigator to look into Mari. Due to her injuries from the wreck, she hadn't been out of the house much recently, so there wasn't new evidence of infidelity, but they did access one of Mari's old cell phones I'd brought in. The detective found it full of photos, texts, and messages to and from several men. Messages full of guilt admissions, leaving no doubt about her betrayal. Nadia asked if I wanted to see the photos or read the messages, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. We planned for me to confront Mari at Nadia's office. She called Mari's mom, and I overheard Mari's voice on the phone for the first time since the wreck. Nadia got to the point, explaining we needed her to come in to clarify some things. Mari said she'd been wanting to talk and agreed to meet without needing a lawyer. I felt like I was on autopilot for the next day, just barely making it through work, trying not to cry or scream. When the time came, I arrived at the office early. I wanted her to come in after, sit across the table from me, away from the door, unable to approach. When she walked in, visibly weakened from the wreck and in 2 casts, I almost felt sympathy, but I knew better than to fall for it. I'd been waiting too long for this moment, and all I wanted was for her to sit down and explain herself. Once we started recording, she tried to apologize. I cut her off, asking her straight up how many men she'd been with and how long it had been going on. Her clueless act was frustrating, and I could feel my anger rising. Nadia stepped in, gently placing a hand on my shoulder to help me hold back, then asked Mari if I'd been a good father. Without missing a beat, Mari called me the best father she could ask for to raise her children. The way she said her children nearly made me lose it. That's when Nadia calmly slid the paternity test results across the table. Watching her face when she saw them was a moment I'll never forget. She genuinely looked shocked. She tried to spin it with the usual line, "You're her father. You raised her." I stopped her there, making it clear that I wasn't going to let her manipulate this situation any further. I asked her who Carrie's father was, and she looked down, a hint of shame crossing her face. It felt like she might be protecting someone when she admitted she didn't know for sure. Seeing her like that made me break down in tears for the first time. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Mari started crying too and tried to explain herself. She reminded me of the postpartum depression she struggled with after Michael was born. I tried to be as sympathetic as I could, but I recalled how I had dedicated myself to taking care of our family during that tough time. I had thought that enduring that challenge together had strengthened our relationship, but I was mistaken. Mari didn't blame Rebecca, but she mentioned that after Rebecca encouraged her to go out for girls' nights, she got drunk during the second outing and let a guy feel her up while she performed oral sex. She said she felt guilty for a while, but then began to resent the fact that she couldn't experience being young and free, exploring her options. That led her to start hooking up with guys during her nights out with Rebecca until the night before the wreck. Normally, she came home on time, but not this time. She claimed she didn't want to develop feelings for anyone and always used protection, never sleeping with the same guy more than 3 times. I was dumbfounded. Finding out my wife had been unfaithful was like realizing I was living in a reality show I never signed up for. I wanted to scream at her, but I was too busy trying to calculate how many men she could have cheated on me with over the years. Nadia asked if Mari had any idea who Carrie's father might be. She insisted she always assumed it was me. When my lawyer pointed out that something clearly went wrong, Mari confessed that a few times, a condom had broken. I lost it. I asked her who she really was, as this person seemed so foreign to me, casually discussing such horrific things like they were nothing. I demanded to know when she had started hating me and what I had done to deserve this treatment. How could she do this to our daughter? She absorbed my anger, and we both knew the truth of what was happening. Our marriage had turned into scorched earth. The only thing left was to tally the losses. I had lost a wife and a daughter, that was 2. She had lost a husband, 3 total. A daughter had lost a father, and a brother had seen his sister become a half-sister. We were destroying 2 entire families. I knew her parents wouldn't accept this, and I vowed to show them all the evidence the private investigator would find. Mari admitted to meeting men from dating apps during her outings with Rebecca, using that time to hook up. She claimed she never intended to hurt me and swore she had no idea that Carrie wasn't my daughter. I actually believe her because I had no idea either, but DNA doesn't lie. I asked her why she didn't just divorce me, and she bluntly admitted it was because she didn't want to lose the security I provided. She cried throughout the conversation, but I couldn't help but feel nothing but scorn in my expression. I felt used, humiliated, emasculated, and defeated. I realized that one reason she came to talk without a lawyer was that I owned everything. She didn't have much to lose outside of a small 401k and my assets, which I inherited from my grandfather when I was just 14. The woman I call mom isn't my biological mother. My real mother died when I was 2 from a rare, fast-spreading cancer. My dad remarried when I was 4, and I've known my entire life that my mom was not my biological parent. I learned later that she couldn't have children, and raising me gave her a chance to experience motherhood. When my biological grandmother passed away, whatever was left to her went to me as her heir, but I couldn't touch it until I turned 21. I worked hard in school and don't need to work financially, which she knows. In a divorce, I'd easily wipe the floor with her. She wouldn't get anything close to half. She has a job, though she can't work at the moment due to her injuries. Part of me wants to punish her, while the other part just wants to be done with her. Mari was clearly medicated for pain, which may have contributed to her bluntness, but her words cut deep. I asked if she felt any shame, and she claimed she did. I questioned how we would find out who Carrie's father really was. My soon-to-be ex-wife started with some nonsense about already knowing who he was, but I wasn't in the mood for a philosophical discussion about fatherhood. Whoever Carrie's father is deserves to know, especially for health reasons. The evidence the private investigator found didn't date back to before Carrie was born. I asked her if she could find any of these men or had saved their numbers, and she had the audacity to say she lost their numbers on purpose to avoid seeing them again. I couldn't believe her logic. I told her she should have kept their numbers to inform them about a potential child, or even to let them know if she had an STD. I want my name removed from Carrie's birth certificate. DNA proves she is her mother's child, not mine. I will financially support her long after she turns 18. She won't want for anything. As for my son, I'm truly unsure what to do. Before the paternity test, I had strongly considered a 90-10 custody arrangement, giving my ex-wife custody 1 weekend a month and certain holidays. Now that I know Carrie isn't mine, I don't feel right about pursuing custody for her, even if I could get it. Michael is her brother, albeit half, and I don't want to take him from her. I don't want either of them to suffer, but I haven't seen Carrie since the test results came in, and I can't let her see me break down because of it. God knows how much therapy she'll need, and I'll have to pay for that. I can't assume her real dad will be able to afford it, and my own therapy cost will be enough to support some therapist's new beach house. Driving home after the meeting, I felt an overwhelming urge to end it all. It seemed like the best solution for everyone but me. Both families could go on pretending about paternity, my ex could live freely while spending my grandfather's money, and the kids wouldn't have to deal with any broken marriage or failed relationships. But by the time I got home, I dismissed those thoughts. Nadia is drafting divorce papers and legal paperwork to have me declared not Carrie's father. It may take longer, but I don't want any legal grounds that force me to interact with or support children that aren't mine. The legal team is researching ways to find out who Carrie's father is. Many ancestry sites suggest potential relatives when results come back. Now that's our first plan of action. Even if the results don't point to a specific individual, they could still indicate a brother, cousin, or another relative. Whoever the father is, he may not be ready to accept a child he didn't know about, which could cause some anxiety in his life. But I doubt it compares to the terror I felt losing my daughter forever, knowing she never truly existed. Everything is so messed up right now. Nothing feels stable, and chaos is a daily burden. The kids are coming back to the house Sunday afternoon. I've never dreaded seeing them before, but I know some inevitable moments will happen. I can't prepare myself for when Carrie sees me and wants to hug her daddy. I don't even know how I'll react, whether to hug her and cry like a baby, knowing she has never truly been mine, or to tell her I'm not the person she's looking for. I can't bring myself to be mean to her, but my heart is shattered. There's nobody to blame for this except Mari. Nothing I could do, aside from murder, could equate to the betrayal she's dealt me. That scale will never be balanced. She used me and discarded me, and she deserves to rot in hell for her promiscuous lies. I'm destroyed, and everything I once loved feels ruined too. I will win the divorce. Nadia and the team will ensure it's the most lopsided asset division in divorce history. But Mari has already diminished so much of my value. It feels like she's won again. To hell with her. I'm left with a son she will try to manipulate against me. Some people are just horrible. They deserve to be put down like animals. I made the foolish decision to have a child with one. Update. The assistant from the law firm texted me at 3 p.m. on Sunday to let me know she had the kids safely in the car with their belongings and was on her way to the house. I doubt any text message in history has been as dreaded as that one was for me. What made it more tragic is that, weeks ago, I would have smiled at the prospect of the kids coming home. Now, a reunion I would have yearned for is something I dread. I had no plans to mention divorce, paternity, or any issues with the kids. As much as I tried to prepare myself, I knew I wasn't in the right state of mind to bring any of that up. My goal was to keep things as normal as possible, like those times they stayed with their grandparents while Mari and I were on vacation. But I knew reality would be completely different, and I had little control over any of it. Jessica, the intern from the firm, pulled into the driveway, and I watched from the front bay window as they arrived. As the car came to a stop, I walked outside and down the steps, smiling as I approached the passenger side of Jessica's car. When I saw Carrie in her car seat, beaming at me, I started to cry. I was still smiling. You couldn't have knocked that smile off me with a 2x4. I just hoped that if I maintained a smile, it might convince the kids, and myself, that everything was okay. I wish I had a plan B. As soon as I got Carrie out of her car seat, Michael was by my side. I grabbed both of them and hugged them tightly, telling them how much I missed them. That was really all I could manage to say as I just kept crying. People can hate me all they want. God knows I've received some hate-filled messages, both privately and publicly, but it all felt different now. It didn't feel the same as the day I hugged my children goodbye. I want to say it did just to quiet those who think I'm a loathsome wretch. Maybe part of the loss I felt was over the family unit we used to know being destroyed. My heart was shattered, seeing them and knowing Carrie isn't mine. That realization broke my heart all over again. This is what my life has become. Every single day brings new heartbreak. I learn more about the extremes of Mari's cheating escapades and discover pain I can't shield the kids from. I'm reminded of the past bonds that were all built on lies. I keep trying to distance myself from the chaos that erupted when I caught Mari cheating, but I keep getting hit with stray boulders of betrayal daily, learning how deeply I've been deceived. Jessica was a saint, helping me get the kids into the house. I grabbed all their belongings like a pack mule while she closed the doors and trunk as soon as I placed their bags down. I turned to see Carrie looking up at me. She didn't say anything. She just looked at me with those eyes, as if she knew I was the one who needed the hug. I squatted down, and she walked into my arms, wrapping her little arms around me as tightly as she could. That child has shattered me. I wanted to be strong, but no kid should ever have to hear their parent cry like that. Everyone keeps telling me to do what will damage them the least, which makes sense, but what if everything I do causes harm? If I let her see me, a once strong source of comfort, now broken, how can that not hurt her? Abandoning her would destroy her, but by staying in her life, I fear I'm doing damage as well. A 6-year-old shouldn't have to console a grown man for something that isn't her fault. In that moment, my heart burned with rage towards Mari. Yet, the little girl she lied to me about showed me love in the only way she knew how. I had a realization. Both of us are victims. As the adult, I'm supposed to manage this better, but she doesn't even know she's been victimized yet. We're like two survivors of a plane crash. We made it, but the scars will remain. We need to stick together because we're experiencing the same trauma, albeit from different perspectives. I had been viewing this as Mari taking my daughter from me, but it's also true that she took her father from her. The true villain here is Mari, and I refuse to feel guilty about my emotions anymore. There's no handbook for navigating paternity issues like this. While Reddit might offer great advice for dealing with infidelity or divorce, no one can truly understand how it feels to find out that the daughter you've raised isn't biologically yours. The only analogy that fits is children switched at birth, both parents deceived and suddenly discovering their child isn't who they thought. After about half an hour, I managed to pull myself together. Jessica left after receiving hugs from all three of us, and I slipped her a small envelope with $500, knowing she drives an EV and that it wasn't for gas. I carried Carrie in my arms, while Michael showed me some things he had made with his grandfather. Carrie kept her arms wrapped around my neck, ensuring I knew she'd helped stain some of the wood. We played our usual game of disbelief, which turned into a tickle fight, first with Carrie, then Michael. It was both wonderful and heartbreaking to hear their laughter. Seeing Michael happy brought a moment of joy to my fractured soul, even though I know the future holds little of that bliss. They teamed up against me, and I loved watching their camaraderie. By the time she's old enough to date, I want her to be empowered to say no firmly. I played some music, as Carrie has loved it since she was a baby. I've danced with her from her first week of life until just last month. I may look silly, but I don't care. We have fun, and she loves being goofy with me. I ordered takeout from Uber Eats. We may not be Asian, but we certainly eat like it. Michael, for a 10-year-old, is a culinary whiz, and for some reason, Carrie loves crab rangoon. I didn't eat much. My appetite has suffered due to everything going on, but I cherish the time spent with them again. After dinner, I got them bathed, into their pajamas, and ready for bed. Michael likes to read as he settles down, so I hugged him, told him I loved him, and said I'd see him in the morning. With Carrie, I tucked her into bed and read her a story, pointing out details in the illustrations. As I felt tears welling up, I kissed her on the head and told her I loved her for the first time since I found out everything. Call me what you want, but saying it was like finally allowing myself to admit the truth. My love for Carrie is real. I do feel different now, but right or wrong, I love her deeply. I went from not wanting to take anything away from her to wanting to give everything I could. It's a huge shift. I found myself waiting for Carrie to tell me she loves me. I know she does, even if she doesn't say it outright. Instead, she told me, "Mommy loves you." I understood what she meant and made an effort to stay calm and sweet when I asked her about it. I gently inquired whether Mommy just said that or if she told Carrie to say it to me. It seemed that my soon-to-be ex-wife had explained to the kids why I hadn't been visiting and that she wouldn't be coming home with them. To my surprise, she told them that her parents' house was her new home, which I found somewhat reassuring. However, I still needed to clarify the "I love you" situation. I pressed Carrie for more details, but then Michael walked in and revealed that their mom told them she wouldn't be coming home because I didn't love her anymore. What was I supposed to say to that? I wasn't about to take the blame for falling out of love with their mother. I called our usual babysitter and asked if she could come over for a few hours since the kids were already in bed. She agreed, and I jumped in the car, heading straight for my in-laws' house without bothering to call first. When I arrived, I knocked on the door and asked to see Mari. Her mom led me to Mari's childhood room, where she was recovering from her injuries. I placed my hand on the doorknob and told her mom that Mari and I needed to talk. Sensing my irritation, her mom quickly left the room. Once the door was closed, I confronted Mari about trying to pin our breakup on the idea that I could never love her again. She claimed it was the truth, but I told her that the reason I could never love her again was because she had been a deceitful, promiscuous liar. This was just her way of deflecting blame. She said she had already tried to apologize, but I wasn't interested. I exploded, asking her what good an apology would do. It wouldn't undo the damage she had caused or prevent further harm, and deep down, I didn't believe she was truly sorry for her actions. I questioned how she could manipulate our innocent children to make me look like the villain. I asked her at what point I became the bad guy who destroyed our marriage. Without missing a beat, she responded that it was when I didn't give her a second chance. I paused and asked her how much pain medication she was on and if she was drinking alcohol with it. That was the only way I could understand her reasoning that a lying, deceitful person deserved a second chance. She had lost all rights to mercy, dignity, and respect through her own choices. I couldn't recognize my wife anymore. It was as if she had been possessed by the spirit of someone reckless. The woman I once considered virtuous had been replaced by a soulless temptress. I asked her if she felt justified in destroying everything in her life for the sake of sex. She claimed it wasn't just about sex, saying that a lot of it was about validation. When I asked how she could feel chaste, she got defensive, but I reminded her that actions have consequences, and she would have to deal with how she was perceived for the rest of her life. Mari and I ended up talking for several hours. She revealed that after Michael was born, she had experienced severe depression and that I had been the supportive husband she could have hoped for. I had to ask her why she chose to betray me so cruelly. She explained that despite the joy of becoming a mother, She felt overwhelmed by anxiety and a sense of emptiness. Even though she felt love for me and for Michael, she felt dead inside. She had taken an extra 6 months off work to deal with her issues, and I had provided her with the best mental health care possible. She admitted that even that care made her feel guilty for not contributing to our family, which led her to withdraw from friends and social connections. She would tell me every day that she loved me and apologized, but I reminded her that she had nothing to apologize for. I just wanted her to get better. Maybe, I thought, she was apologizing for what she was about to do. When Rebecca came to the house that first day, I was so relieved to see her. I knew Becca was bold enough to not be pushed away, but kind enough to help Mari open up. It still took months before anything resembling a night out happened. Just getting Mari to agree to go to Starbucks felt like a victory. I know a ton of guys probably think I'm the biggest schlep for letting my wife go to bars or clubs with a single girlfriend. In most cases, they'd be 100% right, and I should have put a stop to it sooner. But at that point in our lives, after all the sadness and isolation, getting Mari out and about seemed to brighten her mood. After her first night out, Mari tried to explain how she suddenly became a wife and mother in such a short span. She talked about how the attention from thirsty men, even if it was just for sex, boosted her ego. She claimed the first incident wouldn't have happened if she hadn't been so drunk, but once it happened, she knew I'd never touch her again if I found out. She came into the marriage with nothing, and she understood that. I asked her if she ever thought about me finding out about her cheating and how I'd react if I did. She admitted she knew it would destroy me and claimed she felt terrible about it. I couldn't help but ask why she continued to cheat if she felt that way. She said that as soon as she sobered up after each time, she felt guilt, shame, and regret. I remembered her being really sad for a week after that first outing with Rebecca. They had talked for hours alone. Eventually, I got the old Mari back. She revealed she told Becca the day she felt unworthy of me because of what she had done. She understood that if I found out, it would be over for us, and she decided to take her secret to the grave, vowing to be the best wife she could be in every way to make it up to me. Looking back, that was a major red flag. I know I probably look like a fool for allowing all of this, but we had a baby to care for, and I had been doing most of the overnight caregiving. At the time, I thought I had my wife back, and it felt like a miracle. Within 2 weeks, I was back to work part-time, then full-time once Mari seemed stable. Those months, right before and after Michael turned 1, were some of the happiest of my life. But knowing now that those happy times were overshadowed by her infidelities forever alters those memories. I asked Mari why she cheated again if I just wasn't enough for her. I always thought we had a great sex life aside from her depression. She acted like she enjoyed it, but she claimed that the longer she kept the secret, the worse she felt about herself. After Michael was born, she couldn't let me in on her feelings. She knew I would want to comfort her, but she felt she couldn't share the truth. She described the internal struggle of keeping the secret and living the lie of a facade of happiness. I remembered a time when I took Michael to a family reunion out of state, introducing him to my biological family for the first time. Mari canceled at the last minute, claiming she was ill. While I couldn't have stopped her from cheating at that moment, I felt that if she hadn't been lying, I might have prevented her from going down a road of deception that lasted for 6 years. I wasn't blaming myself. She should have been on that plane, and she should have confessed her infidelity long ago, allowing me to move on with my life. Instead, she made multiple mistakes compounded by lies, showing little concern for the consequences. She gave me some story about being so depressed that weekend while I was away, feeling unworthy even if I didn't view her that way. She claimed she was punishing herself because she thought she deserved it. She knew if I found out, I would view her as a failure and be disgusted with her. I never stopped showing my love for her, telling her how much I cared. But at some point, she realized that if I knew the truth, I wouldn't love her anymore. She said she called Becca for a shoulder to cry on, and Becca convinced her to go out for drinks. According to her, Mari spent the first part of the night crying and asking for advice. The bartender bought her a few shots to help her cheer up, and she mentioned that Rebecca nudged her toward flirting. She found herself kissing a guy in the back alley behind the bar, but she stopped herself before it went too far. Feeling worse than before, she went back inside only to realize she had cheated yet again. After more drinks, Rebecca had left them alone, and clothes came off. I asked Mari if she ever thought of Michael while she was betraying us. She got angry and insisted she never betrayed her son. I made it clear to Mari that she had betrayed not only me and Michael but also Carrie, our parents, and everyone who witnessed us take our vows. She violated the sanctity of our family and marriage. I shook my head and told her that, despite everything she had done, she should have just let me go. I would have looked after Michael, and she could have done whatever she wanted after the divorce. I even said I would have gladly written her name on bathroom stalls if it meant ending our marriage. Instead, she continued to lie and cheat, which disgusted me. It was as if she had a strategy. After the first few guys, she didn't want them getting attached because she wasn't going anywhere unless she had two partners. She wasn't looking for an emotional connection. She called it fishing. She would get a guy's number, break the ice, give a little nibble, and then pull away, making them pursue her on her terms. When she mentioned that she knew I thought she was beautiful, it only added to my frustration. I was certain that the bartender was not Carrie's father, as he would have been too early in the timeline for that. When I asked Mari if she could remember the names of the men she had been talking to, she could only recall a couple of first names. That was enough to end the conversation for the night. I wanted more answers, but I knew the details wouldn't come out all at once, and that wasn't why I was there. She was sitting in a chair with her cast propped up on pillows, so I leaned in close to her and told her she was a pitiful excuse for a human. I genuinely believe she has no soul. I told her that her actions have caused unimaginable pain and that they would continue to do so in the future. I looked her squarely in the eyes and let her know I wouldn't let her hurt my children anymore. I made it clear that I was the one who had been deceived for 6 years, and if anyone deserved a break for focusing on his own needs, it was me. I told her that being petty and manipulative would only make me loathe her more. There was no chance of us getting back together. I was disgusted at the thought of her even touching me. Loyalty wasn't even in her vocabulary. Regardless, as their father, I was determined to be loyal to Carrie and protect her as much as I could. If it meant protecting her from her mother's lies and deceit, so be it. I warned her that Nadia had friends who would love a new BMW for getting her declared an unfit mother. I meant every word of that threat. I told her if she had things to say, she needed to say them to my face. No more getting Michael or Carrie to relay her words. Carrie was to know little to nothing about our divorce or the paternity issue for now. When the time came to explain things, I would be the one to do it. I wouldn't allow Mari, the person who had destroyed so much for us, to downplay her actions or blame me. That difficult conversation would not happen anytime soon. I would decide when the time was right. I pointed out that she didn't have a lawyer and informed her that the kids would be staying with me for at least the next 2 weeks. She needed time to reflect on her betrayal and the cruel manipulation that would only hurt Carrie. I made it clear she would have to earn back her right to be a mother. On the drive home, I couldn't help but wish I had known how things would turn out. This was the biggest struggle of my life, and I hoped it would remain that way. So much had been destroyed. The sham marriage I had been living needed to be dismantled and left in ruins. I wanted to protect Carrie, who was blissfully unaware of the conflict between her mother and me. I realized that the tension between Mari and me was toxic, and I wouldn't subject my children to that. I wouldn't fight in front of them, but I vowed to call out any manipulation or deceit on her part. It felt like every decision I made had 1,000 repercussions. The whole idea that man up and DNA doesn't matter is misguided. People need to understand that hurting Carrie is the last thing I want to do. I'm committed to being in her corner and fighting for her. I don't know how this will all end, but both she and I got hurt by the same person, and I refuse to let Mari damage her the way she damaged me. No mother of any kind is going to come around my daughter until I allow it. That decision won't be Mari's either. If I check a guy's background and meet him, I'll be the one making that call if the time ever comes. For now, Michael, Carrie, and I are weathering this storm together. I'm doing my best to shield them from what's coming and minimize the fallout, but I know our souls are all going to bleed a little before this is over. This situation could have been prevented, but now that the bomb has gone off, there's no avoiding the aftermath. I apologize for venting. I intended this as just an update, but sometimes it feels like too much. I'm in therapy twice a week. I'm not sure how much it's helping yet, but it's still early in the process, so I'll give it a few more sessions. I need to get some rest, so I'll post this and step back for a while. It has helped me to verbalize some of what I'm feeling, so thank you for that. I just need to focus on my healing and making this transition as smooth as possible for the kids. I appreciate all the guidance and encouragement I've received. It's been incredibly helpful. I promise to return the favor and try to support others here one day, but not today. Now, for update 3, I'm not sure where to start. I want to cover everything, but it's challenging to discuss any one part of my situation without it branching into other aspects of my life. So, if this sounds disjointed, I apologize. It will be a long read because the life I was living feels like a distant dream. The best analogy I can give is that Mari cast Michael, Carrie, and me in a tawdry reality show against our will and without our knowledge. Now that the show has been canceled, the facade has fallen away, and we're left with the cold reality of our lives. Not a day goes by that I don't think about how happy I was in my old life, but knowing now that it was built on lies, I wouldn't want it back. The biggest news I have to share is that I am no longer legally Carrie's father. I was never her biological father, and my name has officially been removed from her birth certificate. Since Mari and I are still married, I am now just Carrie's stepdad, which feels incredibly strange. Once the divorce is finalized, I will officially be nothing to her, and she will be nothing to me. What should have taken about 2 months ended up taking 4 because of the divorce proceedings. My name had to be removed from her birth certificate to move forward legally with the divorce. I had every right to pursue having my name taken off the birth certificate of a child who isn't biologically mine. Still, it was up to a judge to decide if removing my name was in the best interest of the child. Legally, DNA is binding when it comes to child support for 18 years, but our court systems treat that as secondary when it comes to removing names from legal documents. I was willing to show the judge that I would continue to pay for Carrie's health and supplemental insurance, something many men in my situation couldn't or shouldn't do. None of this should be left up to a judge's discretion. From the moment I found out Carrie wasn't my daughter, I've gone over and over in my mind how best to handle this. Learning she wasn't mine emotionally devastated me in ways I struggle to express, but I knew that addressing Carrie's situation with too much emotion would only lead to disaster. Our emotions can betray us because they're not based on reason and logic. Allowing my love for Carrie to guide me would have been just as reckless as letting my hatred for Mari do the same. Legally, I had every right to cut all ties with Mari and Carrie since neither one was mine. Morally, I couldn't allow Carrie to suffer economically because of her mother's choices. Ethically, I couldn't let her feel like any of this was her fault. At the end of the day, after a lot of soul-searching, I've come to realize that both Carrie and I were victims of Mari, my soon-to-be ex-wife. Mari removed my agency in every aspect of our relationship. She cheated without telling me she no longer loved me, or perhaps she never did. I wasn't informed of her infidelity or that I was no longer her one and only. I had no idea she conceived a child with a stranger and had me raise that child as my own for 6 years. Carrie never got a say in whether she would have chosen me as her dad. She didn't have a voice to express how her mother's actions had hurt us both. I wanted to give us both a voice. The day after my name was officially removed from Carrie's birth certificate, I filed a petition to legally adopt her as my daughter. That had been my plan all along. Once I was certain that seeing her wouldn't be a constant reminder of her mother's betrayal. I needed to know that for myself, and I couldn't until I saw her face to face. If seeing her felt like a slap in the face from Mari, like the one I received when I caught her cheating, I knew I couldn't go through with it. People might think I'm wrong for feeling this way or label me with terms like fragile masculinity, as a toxic feminist once did. But if I had completely abandoned Mari and Carrie, something I had every legal right to do, I wouldn't have been in the wrong. I won't pretend that keeping Michael in my life didn't influence my decisions, especially since Carrie is his sister and Mari is his mom. Michael is a good big brother, and he loves Carrie. That fact mattered in the choices I made. Carrie is my daughter, even if it's not to the same extent as Michael, who is biologically mine. I want her to remain in my life. I felt I needed to legally set the record straight and create opportunities for us that we never had. On the surface, it may seem like pointless legal actions to get back to where I stood before, but my marriage was a lie, and my relationship with Mari was a charade, most likely from day one. What I deserve is a do-over, a chance to pick a different woman to love in the hopes that she might be faithful and loyal. But I can never have that. I can never know what might have been. Anything I could have done would have been better than marrying a disloyal partner. The kids won't learn the details of their mother's betrayal and promiscuity for many years, but I want them, especially Carrie, to eventually understand my struggle to keep it together and protect them. I want her to know that, as much as I despise her mother, I chose her as my daughter. When the judge asks that innocent little girl if she wants me to be her dad again, I want her to say yes without hesitation. Only years from now will she grasp that she truly chose me to be her dad. We were thrown together without a say in the matter, but I'm doing everything legally possible to adopt her as my own flesh and blood. One day, when she's an adult, I want her to realize that I gave her the chance to be free of me, and she didn't take it. I want her to smile and understand that I didn't have to be her dad. I chose to be her dad. I hope that makes our bond stronger than blood. There are a few people I'm related to that I'd rather not be, but I didn't have a say in that. Carrie and I chose each other when we could have walked away. She knows I love her and always will. It's been hard just trying to take one day at a time to get through this hell that has become my life. It's draining, but I also think about how I want the kids to perceive all of this years down the line when they learn about their mother's actions and how I discover the truth. I want them to feel revolted by what Mari did, especially when Carrie learns that I didn't owe her anything financially, but chose to raise her anyway. I want Carrie to feel grateful, understanding that her mom put us both in an impossible situation, but we made it through together. I want Carrie and Michael to be happy and understand that we made it through this difficult time together, even when their stability could have been completely destroyed due to their mom's actions. I held it all together for the three of us, and I hope they appreciate at least part of my sacrifice. There won't be any revisionist lies told 10 or 20 years from now. I know their mother is a worthless, selfish, wretched excuse for a human being, and one day they will know that truth too. I hope they choose to shun her from their lives for what she did, but that decision will be theirs when the truth is revealed. All I can do is remove Mari from my life in every way possible and keep living. What happens to her is of no concern to me. The kids are all that matter now. Quite a few people have messaged me asking how I handled Mari, telling the kids that we could never get back together because I could never love her again. The very next day after school, I took them both out for ice cream at a local park. Michael seemed resigned to the fact that I don't love their mom, but he didn't like it. Carrie was upset about hearing that I don't love her mother, and telling her that her mom doesn't really love me didn't help. There was a lot of crying and confusion on their part, but I made sure to tell them, without a doubt, that their mom genuinely loves them and that I love them more than anything in this world. They needed to hear the truth and face a reality none of us asked for. When Carrie asked me why I don't love her mother, I wanted to be as honest as possible, but I didn't think there was an age-appropriate way to tell her that her mother is batshit crazy. So, I told her that her mom lied to me and hurt me. She hugged me to console me, which nearly broke my heart, considering she had her own issues to deal with. Michael asked what would happen regarding the divorce, so I explained that they would live with me, and I'd look after them in our home during the week. I told them a court would figure out what weekends they would stay at their grandparents' house with their mom. I promised them their mother, and I would keep our arguing between us from that point forward. Carrie said she wanted her mom to stay with us. It hurt me to tell her that would never happen again under any circumstances, but she needed to hear it. She mentioned that her mom had said she wanted to come back and stay with us. I looked her straight in the eye and told her I had no doubt their mom would like to keep staying with us, but it was impossible to explain at that time. I said their mother had betrayed all three of us, and they weren't old enough to understand that yet, but I promised that one day I would tell them exactly why I felt their mom didn't deserve to live with us anymore. Carrie seemed to accept it more than Michael. He started asking how old he had to be to know what his mom did. When I told him it had nothing to do with age, but rather with maturity level, he called it a cop-out. I didn't argue with him. I wanted them to love their mom and treat her with respect because, as far as they know, she hasn't done anything wrong to them. I will tell them when they're old enough, knowing it will likely negatively influence their opinion of her. I have a feeling they will soon see a version of their mother that will do much of that for me. One day they will know what she did to all of us, but we stuck together and made a decent life for her three biggest victims. I'm not capable of faking it in front of them or acting like their mom means anything to me. She is completely repulsive in all ways. If she died, I wouldn't shed a tear for her vile soul as she splits hell wide open. She deserves it. I hate her for what she has done to me and the children. I hate her for allowing herself to become someone who brings nothing but stress and tears to our extended families. She deserves no forgiveness, no chances, and least of all, compassion. I don't care about her injuries. I see them only as pain and suffering. True karma would have found a way to not ruin my car and would have done a lot worse than the injury she got. I heard through the kids that their mom was having pins removed from her shoulder the next day. I didn't tell them I hoped they used a strong electromagnet to do it, but it was hard not to feel that way. A few weeks after our talk, the kids came home from their grandparents' house with a letter addressed to me, sealed in an envelope. I couldn't throw it away in front of the kids, so I placed it on the counter with the junk mail. After getting the kids to bed, I passed by the letter and decided to read it. Mari started by apologizing for hurting me, claiming she never meant to let things get that far. She said she had forgotten who she was and wanted to be and apologized for hurting the kids. As much as I despise her, I had to give her credit. If she had stopped there, I might have respected her a bit. But then she wrote that she still loved me with all her heart and always has. I needed the laugh. I really did, because I knew she actually believed the BS she wrote. That's what made it so funny. But when I kept reading, she claimed that's why she didn't want to develop feelings for any other guy, because her heart belonged to me. I wanted to laugh again. She couldn't give her body to others if she loved me. She couldn't have done something so hurtful if she truly loved me. She said giving her body to other men allowed her to know what it was like to be young and free of responsibilities and commitments since she never got to experience that. In her mind, because she never had any emotional bond with those men, Her heart only and always belonged to me. Essentially, her affairs were strictly physical, and she saw that in a positive light. A sick rationalization only the most twisted person could muster. By essentially ghosting Mari, I shielded myself from more of her lunacy. I felt I needed to do that for my own sanity, yet I also shielded myself from understanding the depths of her depravity. Thousands of times since D-Day, I've thought that I never truly knew her. What she chose to write to me showed me she never knew me. She wasn't even trying to piss me off. Her words were telling me that her actions were the lesser of two evils in her eyes. To her, the lack of emotions toward other men saved her heart for me. I understand that knowing your significant other is having a strictly emotional affair is soul-crushing, but no one ever gets STDs from an emotional affair. No one ever punched an emotional affair partner through a cell phone or computer, and no one ever conceived a child through phone calls, emails, or texts. I can say with 100% certainty that I would have rather she had thousands of emotional affairs without anything ever becoming physical. The fact that she doesn't grasp that about me screams, I never knew you. She chose the worst of two evils in my eyes and never understood me well enough to know that. I've read many posts from others in similar situations, but I have yet to see anyone claim that their affairs never got emotional. That's essentially what she's saying, yet she doesn't realize she's admitting to living the last 6 years of her life as little more than an unevolved hedonistic creature, unable to control her sexual urges and behavior. She understood her acts were wrong, but felt somewhat validated for what she did and the way she did it. Until that letter, I had little insight into how she perceived her actions. The depths of depravity she not only condoned but welcomed removed every ounce of attraction I had for her. I'll forever have mental images because of her, bad ones after catching her with that random guy, but they got worse after she admitted to cheating with enough men to fully staff an aircraft carrier. When the private investigator showed me the recovered texts, pictures, and videos from her old phone, it broke something in my psyche. It's like I was married to a hooker for years. Anyone who finds out their significant other had a one-night stand, my heart goes out to you. But I can't put into words what it's like to know the love of your life was being defiled like the sleaziest prostitute of ancient Rome and enjoying it. I can't picture Mari in my mind now without imagining the most degrading things happening to her. She disgusts me that much, and that's how debased I will view her forever. In an instant, she turned into a 6-year time bomb. The motion to adopt Carrie was one of the biggest things Mari had to worry about. The day I filed the paperwork at noon, a sheriff's deputy showed up at her parents' house to serve her with the divorce papers. 10 minutes later, another deputy arrived with paperwork for the civil suit I filed against her. The calls and text from her parents' phones went unanswered, and calls to my lawyer were met with suggestions for her to get her own legal counsel to start the process. That wasn't what she wanted to hear. I'm told she screamed and yelled at several staff members that day. Nadia eventually told her that the divorce would proceed whether she liked it or not, and any further harassment toward her or her staff would be dealt with severely. I kind of wish Mari had kept pushing. Orange was never her color, but what she's done should truly be criminal. Over a week later, a lawyer representing her called Nadia for their first discussion. He asked if we were serious about the civil suit to recover expenses incurred raising a child that isn't mine. Nadia assured him we were determined to recover every cent due to paternity fraud. She didn't tell him that none of this is about money. Even if I win, the odds are high that I'll see little or none of what any court awards. But if I win, it'll be money coming out of any and every paycheck going to me until it's paid in full. That would be a costly reminder and punishment for what she's done. And even if I lose, she has to pay a lawyer to represent her, which is more expense she can't afford. He said he understood the vast majority of assets, including the family home, were mine long before we married. But he urged that we couldn't honestly expect to get custody of both kids, have her pay child support, and for her to live without spousal support after a severe accident. Nadia told him his client had been unfaithful in the marriage long before the wreck, and that she had picked a bad time to get caught. She informed him our goal was to make it as painful for Mari as possible. Mari's car was the only item of any value in her name, and she could keep it. Mari was allowed to keep her retirement savings as her own because my portfolio dwarfed hers. She wouldn't have even had that 401k without my urging. She put in the maximum allowed each pay period. She never had to contribute to any utilities. Buying her own car and paying her own insurance were her only expenses. The rest of her money was hers. Now she gets to live on it. I know she's already feeling the financial pinch, and it's just going to get worse for her if I win the civil suit. Starbucks sales will plummet, but it has to be done. I just don't think she ever expected I'd go to these lengths. As for cars, I drove hers around for a few months after mine was wrecked, adding mileage to the car just to feel some satisfaction, even if it was petty. But then I bought a beautiful new SUV and had my buddy follow me as I drove Mari's car back to her parents. I left the key in the mailbox, not knowing when she'd be able to drive again. Given her past, I was sure she'd be on the hunt for strange as soon as she could. I hope living with her mom and dad is making her feel young and free of responsibilities, but having random men sleep over at her parents' house is just tacky. Eventually, she will need some classy place to offer herself to strangers, like a 2020 Acura. I thought about donating her car to the local community college's criminal justice department. Those candidates would be experts on the use of luminol by the time they became actual police. As warped as it sounds, the most satisfying thing about dropping that car off was the spare tire. It doesn't have one. It never did. That was a major point I made when she asked my opinion about purchasing the car. I remember her saying sweetly that she had me to call if she ever got a flat. It was all I could do not to leave a note under the trunk mat saying something like, "Bet you wish you had a spare now." But I'm sure eventually she'll get the message all on her own. A few days after the lawyers spoke on the phone, they met in person to discuss things. Her side wanted a meeting to discuss the car situation. Even if I didn't want to, I didn't want her putting up walls to prevent me from adopting Carrie. I agreed to meet for our daughter's sake and found myself seated in the main conference room when Nadia walked in with opposing counsel and Mari. I had never truly understood what people meant when they said someone looked, rode hard, and put away wet until that moment. She looked horrible. For quite a few minutes, I thought my eyes were deceiving me, clouded by some sort of blood rage or hatred hallucination. It wasn't until Nadia shot me a side glance due to my ex's appearance that I knew I wasn't imagining things. Mari had lost so much weight that the sides of her face were slightly concave. She'd never been overweight, and she shed the baby weight both times with ease. But now she looked like she had an appointment to get her mug shot taken in Florida. Her hair had been cut. It wasn't quite a Karen cut, but it was definitely reminiscent of one, and it looked like it hadn't been washed since the wreck. I wasn't sure what she could have worn that would be flattering, but I swear I made sure she got all her clothes back, so nobody could blame me for that ensemble. The two lawyers discussed various things to kick off the meeting. I could feel Mari's eyes on me, but I didn't want to look her way. I wanted to convey hatred and scorn. When I finally glanced over, I wondered where the beautiful girl I once knew had gone. In just 6 months, she had gone from beautiful to looking like a bag lady. Now, I was just somebody she used to sleep with. Thankfully, we began discussing Carrie, which took my mind off how rough Mari looked. They asked if there had been any attempt to find Carrie's biological father. I told them nothing would happen until the divorce and custody issues were finalized. Then I asked if she had remembered any names that might lead us to baby daddy number 2. I felt trashy even saying it, and she didn't like hearing it, but truth is truth. She said no names came to mind from that time. I asked if she had any plans to block me from legally adopting Carrie. She insisted she wished I had never removed my name in the first place, and that she certainly wasn't going to try to keep me from putting it back. That was all I needed to know. As I was about to stand up and urge the meeting to end, Mari asked me if I could have forgiven her and taken her back as my wife after her first mistake if she had confessed and sworn never to stray again. She had me. It was a question I knew she had asked herself over and over since that first night she strayed. We both knew the answer, and that was the sticking point. Just asking the question was her way of making a statement. She knew that giving her body to anyone else in my eyes was an act that would cause me to remove her from my life instantly and permanently. We had discussed how we would treat infidelity many times. I told her if I ever found out she cheated, I wouldn't listen to another word she ever said. The time to talk was before infidelity. Everything after is just noise, excuses, and hot air. After several minutes of silence, I reluctantly told her she already knew I wouldn't have given her a second chance. Then I asked her how she would feel if I had an affair and brought home a baby from a random hookup 6 years later. It got ugly from there. She claimed I was doing everything in my power to hurt her. I didn't deny it. She said I wasn't her parents and that I didn't get to punish her. I made sure she understood that the divorce was to punish her, and the civil suit was hopefully literal payback I was owed. She accused me of trying to destroy the kids' lives to hurt her, and I bluntly pointed out that she looked like she'd been smoking meth. After that, she started to cry and told me she loved me. I just rolled my eyes. Her tears no longer garnered any sympathy from me and only made me want to treat her even crueler. I promised her the kids would always be well-fed and well-dressed, but I made sure she understood I didn't care if she starved or had to wear sackcloth. At one point in my life, I would have done anything and given anything to make her happy, but now, all that was gone. I asked Mari if my all wasn't good enough for her to be faithful, and what more I could have done to prevent her betrayal. She replied that she had betrayed herself. I yelled that she had betrayed Carrie. I told her she had betrayed everyone in her life. The lawyers managed to calm things down, and Nadia shared a proposed temporary visitation agreement with them, outlining the weeks she would have the kids. This was supposed to help her schedule doctor appointments better. I warned her that, while it was none of my business what she did, I didn't want any strange men around the kids. She insisted she hadn't been with anyone since the affair, but I reminded her she had claimed that once or twice before. Mari promised that if the time came, she would shield the kids from any of it. I asked if anyone other than Rebecca knew about her unfaithfulness. She confessed that she had admitted only the kissing to her sister after the first incident, and her sister had freaked out, cursing her out for 5 straight minutes. Mari knew she could never tell her sister how far she had actually gone. No one but Rebecca knew about all the hookups. Then she asked if there was any chance of us getting counseling to see if things could work out. I asked her why I would want a marriage with a dead bedroom. She pointed out that we never had a dead bedroom, but I explained that it was certainly dead now since I'd never touch her again with a body count higher than mine. Mari asked if I hated her. I wasn't sure if that was a yes or no question, but with every fiber of my being, I knew we had to suffice with that answer. And that's essentially where we were, just waiting for the divorce case to go before a judge. The civil case couldn't even go on a docket list until the divorce trial ended. Given the circumstances, the kids were doing well. They got to see both sets of grandparents more, which was one positive in this mess. I know I have to let go of the hate. I'm seeing a therapist now, but it took me quite a while to find one I liked. Even she acknowledges that I have a lot of legitimate reasons to hate Mari. I'm not the kind to seek validation, but knowing my hate isn't irrational helps quite a bit. I know it isn't good for me, and my new therapist is helping me vent and try to let go. I'm not very good at meditation, but I'm learning. My first therapist was okay for about 4 sessions. The first session is always essentially introductions, no matter how much you share on the paperwork. She seemed very positive at first, sympathetic yet encouraging. She assured me I was doing better than most at being a good dad, which was nice to hear. But when we started talking about issues from the past, before the cheating, her tone changed. It's not a direct quote, but she kind of insinuated that sometimes we do things that hurt or irritate our partners, and if we don't address those issues, they can fester for weeks, months, or years. It's like a powder keg that we helped create. No, she didn't have a Belgian accent, but I have enough pride and common sense to know that despite any of my faults, I didn't deserve what Mari did. Nothing I had ever done made even 1% of what she did to me righteous. So I got a new therapist. I tried a few sessions with a guy who could understand feelings of emasculation and mind movies. He could grasp how overwhelming it all was. I just didn't feel comfortable with him. Thank God I'm pretty much all cried out, but if I had to talk about something emotional, I didn't want to cry in front of a guy. Guys are for drinking, playing sports, and fighting. We don't discuss why Gary's wife is emotionally unavailable or why she doesn't understand his love language. Part of me wanted to give him more of a chance, but I didn't see us developing any rapport. If that makes me sexist, so be it. I just feel more comfortable confiding in a woman. That's my preference. I finally found a good therapist. She was the only daughter in her family with 3 brothers, which gave her some understanding of men. Her specialty is coping with infidelity and grief counseling. When I told her about the events that led me to her, she used half a box of tissues. She said she was amazed I was doing as well as I was. I'm still not sure if that was meant as encouragement or genuine shock. I'm not institutionalized, but I'll refer to my therapist as Sarah for this post. She's helped me quite a bit just by listening. She says I'm difficult to read and that my outward appearance doesn't match my friendly personality. She noted that I use humor to diffuse tense situations and disarm people. I told her it ruins the fun if she calls me out on my BS beforehand, but she's figuring me out. She insists I have to figure myself out now. She was adamant that while she's there to help, rebuilding my life and myself is going to take effort from me. I can't just pay someone else to do the work for me. I'm going to have to take stock and see how genuinely damaged I am, repair what I can, and amputate what I can't. It's going to hurt even more than I've already hurt, but I have to come to peace with all I've lost because it's not coming back. The kids see their own therapist for 40 minutes each, then 40 minutes with the 3 of us twice a week. They've been doing great. The therapy allows them to come to terms with the inevitable. I was a little concerned about how family therapy would go, given how I feel about their mom. I've been silent in sessions when they've expressed missing their mom or wishing we were all still together. I thought about showing them on a doll where Mari hurt me, but dolls don't have a soul. Sometimes I don't feel like I have one anymore, either. I've gone out of my way to try to be sociable and lean on friends, but given what I have ahead of me, Small talk feels too trivial. I know my friends are tired of me venting. I would be, too. I've tried not to go on a rant, but the betrayal still eats at me, and it's always at the back of my mind. Then, of course, when we go out for drinks, they point out this girl or that girl. I know they're conventionally pretty, but I have no interest in getting to know them. Unlike my wife, the hygiene issues alone would prevent me from any hookup activity, even if given the chance. Rest assured, none of these young ladies has left any establishment suicidal because they couldn't bed me. The lack of interest was entirely mutual. Nobody loses, but this hasn't just affected how I look at women. It's changed how I view people in general. I feel like I'm second-guessing everyone's identity and sincerity. Before all of this, Mari was someone I truly admired. Now, it makes me question the other people in my life, both male and female, that I've admired over the years. She hasn't made me a misogynist. She's turned me into a misanthropist. Despite any shame or guilt she feels for what she's done, I know that jumping into carnal activity with the next guy will be easy for her. She'll start eating better, gain some weight, and guys will be hitting on her in no time. My point is that she'll move on sexually with ease. I can't do that. I won't. I already feel filthy inside and out knowing all the sperm, sweat, spit, and stink from other men she subjected me to. I feel she's defiled me because I've been with her. She didn't just kill any desire for her. She's killed any desire I have for sex at all. As odd as it sounds, Mari was it for me. She was beautiful. I didn't have a need to look at other women, and I thought what we had was special. Beauty just doesn't register with me anymore. My mind knows better, but my subconscious thinks all women are like Mari and Rebecca, and that's my struggle. Fair or not, someone sent me a very supportive message of encouragement. Then they said they almost envied me as an about-to-be single guy who is financially secure. He said I'd have no problems meeting women and would be perceived as high value. I thanked him for the support without conveying that something he looked forward to would be a source of anxiety for me. I know people hook up left and right all day, every day, and everywhere. That's between them and the people they hook up with. It's not my thing, but more power to them. I wouldn't want a stranger, even a very attractive one, touching me. I'm a personal space kind of person. I cannot fathom meeting a stranger at a bar or on an app, interacting with them very little, and then agreeing to go off somewhere, remove our clothes, and have sex, all without issue. It amazes me. Obviously, in a world with Tinder and dating sites, my stance is the oddity. I'd be contemplating how long it had been since they had done the very same thing with someone else. The vast majority of people are accepting of the hookup lifestyle. Mari's hookup numbers wouldn't be all that abnormal for the typical single woman these days, and I think most guys would behave that way if they could. I couldn't and wouldn't, and I never wanted to be with someone who had been unfaithful. Part of me feels Mari wasn't forthcoming about her infidelity just to spite me, knowing exactly what my stance would be. It felt like she was making a statement. If I wouldn't even consider a second chance, she would do exactly what would hurt and disgust me most. It was the ultimate test, a way to get revenge on me without my ever knowing I was being tested. Once the bond we had was broken, we could never regain that connection with each other or anyone else. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and we are each only granted one life. The continued cheating is what has truly killed me. If she had just admitted to what she'd done and we divorced, I might have been able to pick up the pieces and eventually give someone else a chance. It's like she wanted to destroy me so there would be no way I'd ever want to be with anyone again, just because she couldn't have me back. It feels diabolical, and I don't care how many showers she took or how many condoms were used. Some foreign DNA made its way back to me. I feel disgusted. When Mari and I had only been intimate with each other, every action was pure and beautiful. Her first act of infidelity destroyed all that had been or could ever be in an instant. Anyone outside a relationship who physically engages with either partner defile and poisons the relationship forever. It's like the relationship is a tall glass of cold milk. The second her lips touched the lips of another man, it was like placing one drop of India ink into the milk. It's just one drop, still mostly milk, right? But instead of telling me about that one drop of ink, she let me drink the milk. Not only did she keep letting me drink the inky milk, but she kept adding ink. Some people are like a glass of milk with one drop of ink. Mari is now a glass of ink with one drop of milk. She's defiled, of no value. Anything but a prostitute or a fluffer. The night she was conceived, I wish someone had kicked her dad's testicle so hard it hit his spleen, just so he couldn't reproduce again. The world would be a better place without her. The things most people get a rush from regarding new relationships cause me massive anxiety. I remember getting butterflies with Mari, but that feeling made me nauseous. I even had to get used to someone as pretty as Mari invading my personal space. It's not a self-esteem issue. We were both outgoing around each other but introverted by nature. Figuring out how to kiss, feeling that closeness for the first time, I had to ease into it. Everyone thinks all teens are hormonal, but we were very slow to progress physically as we learned and grew more comfortable. I was taught that's how it was supposed to be, that's what I wanted, and that's what she swore to me she wanted too. The thought of trying to be intimate with someone new makes me cringe. Now, the thought of Mari is like the antidote to Viagra. It's all too much. I find myself feeling more ashamed every day to be part of the human species. My life wasn't supposed to go this way. We had so many beautiful moments ahead of us as a family, but those memories are now destroyed, and those moments will never happen. At the end of the day, I loved Carrie, but I had to let her go because our relationship was forced upon us from day one, against our will, by adopting her. I'm telling her I've given the chance because I have given myself the chance. I'd choose her as my daughter all over again. When the judge asks her if she wants me to adopt her, it will be her, with all that love for me, returning full circle. Things will be set right, or as right as they can be. I can never be her father. That title belongs to some guy walking around not knowing he has a 6-year-old daughter. But I'm the only dad she will ever know. I'll protect her and provide for her long after any legal obligation would have lasted. I've done what I had to do to keep my sanity, even when others question my actions or accuse me of being cruel. I've done what I thought was necessary to allow Mari's two biggest victims to stake their claim to what was never truly theirs. I've made mistakes in how I've handled things, and I won't know they were mistakes until much later, but I've done my best. I'll try to provide another update when I can, once more issues are finalized. I apologize for the gap between updates and the length of my posts. I'll strive to improve on both as the kids and I move forward together. Peace and thanks to everyone. I have not seen or communicated with Becca at all since that fateful morning. I don't know how prominent she is in Mari's life now, nor do I know if they have had any contact, but I would imagine they have. The kids haven't mentioned Rebecca at all, so what they tell me is the extent of what I know, which isn't much. However, a few weeks after everything fell apart, I confided in an old friend about what was happening. I chose this friend specifically because his wife is a notorious gossip, and she's also a good friend of mine. So I didn't feel guilty about using one of her negative traits for my benefit. For those who don't know, Becca owns her own salon that employs 9 people besides herself when fully staffed. Since word has slowly spread through our friend group, 2 stylists have left Becca's salon. I can't know if they left for greener pastures or as a protest for her role in my marriage failing, but I can hope that when things are finalized, I'll be airing her dirty laundry freely and often. If that causes some people to avoid working for her or visiting her salon, that's great. But I'll have to wait to see if my actions bring her any misery. One thing of note is that I ran into Mari's sister at the grocery store. She hugged me and apologized for her sister's stupidity and immorality. I have no doubt that many would have told me to avoid contact with her since she is from the enemy camp, but I've always liked Mandy and her husband Doug. So, I invited them over with their children to enjoy the pool. We cooked out, and Doug looked after the kids on the grill while Mandy and I talked. We made every attempt to ensure the kids didn't overhear our conversation. Thankfully, they were all distracted by the pool and plenty of good food, which allowed us to talk at length. To make a long story short, Mari's family knew she cheated on me with more than one man, but Mari misled them about her admissions regarding body counts. Mandy and her parents were told that Mari had a couple of short-term affairs after Michael was born, but when I asked Mandy how many she considered a couple, she replied, 2 or 3. I then went to get the folder containing just the text exchanges between Mari and the men she had slept with, so Mandy could see it for herself. As she looked through the pages, I explained that we were able to verify 47 different men with whom Mari had engaged in sexual activity since Michael was born. I emphasized that those 47 were just the tip of the iceberg, as we knew she often arranged encounters via various phone apps. Mandy didn't know what to say when she heard Mari's verified body count. She wanted to call her parents immediately to inform them and to confront her sister. Mari's failure to be forthcoming about the number of men she cheated with was already overwhelming news for her. Then, I put 2 and 2 together and realized that nobody in Mari's family had been told that I am not Kara's father. I'm not sure who was more upset about that fact, Mandy or me. Doug had to stop grilling to tend to his wife due to the tears she couldn't hold back. She walked around to my side of the picnic table and hugged me, repeatedly expressing her apologies. Doug was stunned and gave me a pat on the back after checking to see that Mandy was okay. He told me we'd go out for drinks later that week. My soon-to-be ex-wife may be a piece of work, but her family and those married into it seem to be genuinely good people. However, I will continue to be cautious about how much trust one allow. I filled Mandy in on what actually happened that morning and how I found out about the paternity results. She was stunned to hear it and expressed that she wished I had punched Becca squarely in the nose. I then asked Mandy what she thought of Becca, and she shared that she had never liked Rebecca, even as kids. Mandy is 4 years older than Mari, Becca, and me. She was a senior when we were freshmen in high school. Mandy said that more than once she caught Becca stealing makeup from her room, but Becca was unapologetic. Mandy despised Rebecca because she was always manipulative and loved causing drama for others. She even mentioned that she tried to be a big sister role model for Becca, especially after Rebecca's dad divorced her mom, but Becca was always an ungrateful brat who wouldn't listen to anyone. I then asked if she knew Mari actually wanted Becca as her maid of honor. Initially, she didn't say yes or no, but her profane stream of consciousness indicated she was unaware. I filled her in on things Mari had told me in letters and during meetings with attorneys. She was just as shocked by Mari's reasoning as anyone else. Mandy stated their parents hadn't raised them to behave that way and mentioned that Mari had declared she never wanted to be with anyone but me long before high school. I'm not sure if that means Mari was deceiving herself from a young age or if her feelings changed. All I know is that humans cannot truly love someone and offer their bodies freely to others. Either the love was never real or it died long before I knew it. Mari has claimed that her heart now and has always belonged to me. I now know that was total nonsense, and I wonder if she was ever capable of love. Not that it matters now, of course. If her heart truly belonged to me, I'd be selling it for transplant to the highest bidder, even though I know it's defective. After lunch, the kids kept playing, so I got to talk with Doug and Mandy at length. She filled him in while I went to get ice cream for the kids and served them. When I returned, I could see tears in Doug's eyes, and he gave me a long, brotherly hug before I sat back down. He asked about the guy I caught Mari with and how much damage I had done. All I could tell him was that when I left, the guy was unconscious, and his lower eyelid on the left side looked like it belonged to a hound dog due to sagging. No police ever contacted me, so I knew his friend never took him to the cops, but I knew enough to understand that his orbital bone fracture would require surgery, and I never got the bill. Doug said I should have killed the guy, but I told him that if Mari and Becca hadn't jumped on my back to weigh me down, I probably would have, but I'm glad I didn't. Doug asked if anyone had any idea who Kara's father actually is. I explained that Mari had been around far too many guys to know for sure, but I assured him that the search would go into high gear once all divorce and civil proceedings were completed. They were both glad to hear that Mari would get slaughtered in the divorce. They were also happy to know that therapy for all three of us had helped tremendously. When I mentioned that I was anxious for Mari to start working again so she could pay child support and whatever civil fine she ended up owing, they laughed. Doug said if paternity fraud were a crime, Mari would get the death penalty. I told him Mari might as well have committed maternity fraud because any woman who could do what she did was no mother at all. About an hour after they left, my phone started blowing up with calls and texts. The caller ID showed that both Mari's mom and dad were reaching out, along with calls and texts from numbers with no ID. Then Mandy called, and I answered. I could hear her, but there was a lot of screaming and yelling in the background. She stepped outside to escape the noise and told me she had filled her parents in on all the truth. Her dad was busy throwing Mari's belongings into her car, while her mom cried and told her what a disappointment she had become and how ashamed they were to have raised such a daughter. Call me old-fashioned, but when your mother calls you a expletive, it's pretty safe to say you've made one too many stops on the train to Horseville. I could hear Mari crying and pleading that she had no place to go. Instead of gloating, I felt she was getting some of what was coming to her. I thought of the kids. I have no issue with Carrie and Michael staying at their grandparents' house, but anywhere else I could think of where Mari might go, there was no way in hell I would allow them to stay with her. If she went to Rebecca's, there was no way I'd allow them to be anywhere near that bimbo. Even if she somehow managed to secure a hotel room with her limited earnings, I didn't trust her not to have some random guy stay over. I was happy her family knew some of the truth, but I also knew that doing so would cause visitation issues. Yet, if she didn't find a stable and safe place to stay, I knew the court wouldn't allow any form of unsupervised visitation. Seeing her kids for an hour or two every other weekend under supervision would be hard for her, but it was a grave she dug for herself with her lies. If it meant a homeless shelter, or even the actual gutter, I didn't and still don't care. Mandy and I were still on the phone when I heard Mari come outside and ask if it was me on the phone. Mandy asked what I wanted her to tell Mari. I probably shouldn't have said the truth, but Mari snatched Mandy's phone and began to plead with me. She asked why I was so intent on destroying her life. I simply replied that she destroyed mine. She urged me that I could have my life back if I just forgave her. I told her that life was over and never actually existed due to her lies. Again, she lied and swore she loved me. I told her, in not-so-eloquent terms, that the only thing she loved in this life was herself. She insisted that none of the others meant anything to her. I told Mari that they all meant more to her than me or her family's security. Otherwise, she wouldn't have risked it all over and over. She asked why I had ratted her out to her sister and parents. I replied with the obvious question. Why had she been honest with them about everything, especially about me not being Kara's father? She cursed at me, saying I was her father. I cursed back and told her I was Kara's dad and always would be, but she should have at least told her family the truth. She claimed that her parents were disowning her and kicking her out, and I told her how much that hurt me, though honestly, I was happy to hear it. I was going to do everything in my power to make things worse for her. Mari said she loved me and asked how I could be so cruel to someone who loved me. I told her she should have been asking herself that question 6 years ago. I knew she felt regret simply because she was losing everything, and now people were hearing the truth. I explained that what she did made her worthy of being shunned and spoken ill of. What she was experiencing from her family was what she deserved. Hawthorne gave the Scarlet Letter a bad name. She'd be a worthy candidate for it. 3 days later, Nadia called and said Mari's attorney had reached out to try and set up another meeting. We scheduled that meeting for last Friday at Nadia's office. I didn't want to see or talk to Mari, but I knew her essentially being homeless would have implications on judicial custody decisions. As soon as we sat down, her lawyer informed me that Mari had been living in her car since her parents kicked her out. I asked why she didn't stay at Rebecca's since that girl had helped get her into this situation. Mari didn't respond. Instead, she asked if there was any way I'd let her come home, or if we could do marriage counseling. I told her she needed to ask her parents if she could come home. The house I shared with our children was off-limits to hussies, hoes, and harlots. I made it clear she and Becca were to stay far away. As for marriage counseling, I told her she was free to try it with whoever was stupid enough to marry her next, but I was certain she could never be faithful to anyone after living like a total expletive for so long. Her lawyer objected to my language and the harshness of my words. I told him he was a money-grubbing expletive just for representing such a expletive, and I asked if she was paying her legal bills through OnlyFans or just blowing him. Nadia placed her hand on my shoulder to calm things down and asked if we could all be more civil. I requested a break because I was already loaded for bear and needed to let off some steam. We took a 20-minute break, and I went out to my car to get away from everyone. I thought about putting a "Home Sweet Home" sign on the hood of Mari's car, but I knew I was on camera, and I was already dealing with enough lawyers. I could see fast food garbage on the passenger side and piles of clothes in the back seat. She was living the nightmare. That's what she had done to her life and mine. I was trying, with the help of a professional, to let go of the hate, but I saw no reason to treat her with even one molecule of respect or decency. Everything about her was indecent. She didn't even respect herself. Nadia urged me to try to keep my answers to the yes or no variety if possible. I agreed to try, but I explained there was only so much of my ex's lies and excuses I could tolerate. She assured me she'd try to get us through the meeting as quickly as possible. When we sat back down, I just glared at Mari and her lawyer to let them know without saying a word that they could both go to hell. Nadia started the meeting back up by asking Mari if she had sought out or received any therapy for herself. She claimed she didn't have the time while dealing with physical therapy and didn't have the money since her insurance wouldn't cover therapy. Nadia asked if we paid for it. Would Mari attend a few therapy sessions on her own? My head turned toward Nadia so fast when she asked that, I thought I'd get whiplash. She kicked me under the table to let me know she had everything under control. Her lawyer immediately said Mari would only see a therapist of her choosing, regardless of who paid for it. Nadia indicated that was fine, but some therapy might help Mari process her emotions to be a better mother in the future. I still thought Nadia had lost her mind proposing such a thing, but I let her keep talking. Her counsel insisted they would discuss it and give us an answer later. My lawyer stated that despite being opposing counsel, as a woman, she wanted to ensure any women involved in cases she was handling got the help they needed. I won't lie. The way she said it was so convincing, I seriously thought my own legal representative had turned on me. Then Mari asked if we could do counseling as a family unit. This time, I kicked Nadia under the table to signal that there was no way in hell I would agree to that. Nadia kicked me back before telling them that if Mari went to several sessions and the therapist thought it would be beneficial, then we could consider family counseling. I knew Nadia had a reason for proposing what she did. I just wished she'd filled me in ahead of time. I figured I'd learn the goal of her tactics later, but I was perplexed until the meeting was over. I asked Mari if what she was going through was worth all the cheap, meaningless sex with strangers. I really wanted to know if being able to run around for years was worth losing everything. I pointed out that she had to have enjoyed what she was doing, or she wouldn't have kept doing it. I wanted to know if those experiences were worth losing a loving husband and custody of her children. She began to weep, what looked like sincere tears, before telling me no. I asked if she felt any actual shame. I knew she felt tons of regret, if for nothing else, getting caught. But I wanted to know if she felt ashamed for people eventually knowing every deviant detail of her sordid escapades. She claimed she very much did, especially now that her family knew. I asked her if she really thought she could hide the truth from her family forever. She said she hoped to keep it all from getting out, at least until she started back to work and got a place of her own, but she knew it would come out eventually. She apologized for hurting me and claimed she never wanted to do that. I told her she didn't just hurt me, she destroyed me. I said that every single day, all day long, I felt pain. It was in my soul, but I could feel it in my joints and muscles. Advil brought no relief. My heart was so broken that when she poisoned my soul, it seeped into my appendages. On a good day, I felt numb. On a bad day, the tension filled my body. Depression caused physical aching sometimes, and some days I woke up feeling sore for no reason. She cried hearing me express the pain her actions were making me endure. I asked her to tell me what I ever did to justify her betraying me so thoroughly and cruelly, but she just cried harder. I asked her what she thought she deserved in life after the things she'd done. Not what she wanted, but what she thought should happen to someone who literally threw their life away. She began to bawl. I was sick of the tears and lack of answers. I was done. The meeting ended with Mari's lawyer trying to get her out of the office as she repeatedly asked me to forgive her. I kept telling her to go home and drive herself somewhere else because we were done talking. When they finally got out of the office, I made Nadia explain why she proposed I pay for Mari to see a therapist. She explained that doing so would be seen as a favorable act by the court, but Mari was clearly unstable and not coping with life very well. If a professional recommended or insisted she needed to be hospitalized for her own good, it would help. Allowing her to see a professional might get her some help, but it could also help us when they see how frazzled she's become. I felt no guilt in not revealing my true intentions for wanting Mari to see a therapist. If she thinks family therapy is a possibility to get her to go, so be it. Mari is good at digging her own grave. I hope that continues. Yes, I realized this was by no means a short update, but it was as condensed as I could make it. The kids are both doing well. Michael is playing baseball as a pitcher since he's the tallest on his team, and he does well from the mound even with a larger strike zone. I'm taking him along with Doug and his two sons to see the Sox play the Tigers next week. Miss Carrie is as beautiful and sweet as ever. She loves the pool, and it's been great having friends over with their kids to enjoy it. I want to raise two kids who are too busy with life to have their noses pressed against a phone that may warp them to the point they feel out of place in society. But they'll be my warped kids. Thanks to all for the kind words and support. Every day seems to bring a new challenge, but knowing I have so many who have my back means more than words can express. Peace and thanks to all. A few people got the idea that Mandy and her parents knew Mari had cheated on me before I did. I told her parents about catching her cheating the same morning I told my parents. They knew nothing of her activities before I told them. I didn't find out until later that Mari had cheated with multiple men, one of whom is Kara's father. I was the one to inform Mari that I am not Kara's biological father. I just assumed she told her family when her dad referred to those men. I assumed he knew she'd been with enough guys to give her vagina its own Yelp rating. I love her family. I don't want them to hurt any more over this than they have to. I had and have no desire to put salt in their wounds. Mari admitted to a couple of short-term affairs to them. That's it. I was trying to protect Carrie and assumed she'd discreetly tell her family. I cut off contact with them and had been communicating via Jessica and Nadia until I ran into Mandy. I hadn't had a sit-down talk with anyone in her family. We came to find out Mari was hoping it stayed that way. A few weeks ago, I signed into this throwaway account for the first time in almost a year. There were many messages and comments inquiring about how the kids and I are doing or how things turned out. A very large part of me wanted to ignore them all, sign out, and never log in again because I have managed to get back on course with my life and my children's lives, and dwelling on the past only hinders forward progress. Things have now been finalized beyond what I ever imagined or intended. My soon-to-be ex-wife, Mari, was kicked out of her parents' house for neglecting to tell them I am not the biological father of our daughter, Carrie. I informed them I caught their daughter cheating the same morning I told them about our wreck. However, she hadn't revealed that the guy I caught her with was just one in a long line of men she cheated with. Mari was forced to live in her car because she had nowhere else to go after being disowned. Meanwhile, I was in the process of attempting to legally adopt Carrie after the court adjudicated that I am not her biological father. My attorney, Nadia, was trying to get Mari to see a mental health professional of her choosing, hoping it might benefit me. Nadia recommended 2 local psychiatric practices to Mari's lawyer, saying we'd pay for her sessions, or she could choose any therapist she wished. I had major misgivings about having to pay for the sessions or doing anything that might actually benefit Mari, but if you learn nothing else from my experience, take this advice to heart. Love them or hate them, always listen to your lawyer. To make a long story short, Mari chose a local psychiatrist who instantly recognized she was mentally unstable. For her own well-being, she committed Mari to the local hospital's psych ward overnight for observation. That overnight stay turned into many months under psychiatric care. Due to confidentiality rules within the medical field, I never heard her actual diagnosis, but her attorney said each time he saw Mari, she was heavily sedated and out of it. Those initial months spent in hospitals delayed the finalization of the divorce and child custody hearings. However, since Mari wasn't contesting and her counsel could stand in as her representation, there was no delay in my attempt to adopt Carrie. As sad as everything had been for me, hearing that judge question Carrie and listening to her responses made me unbelievably happy. Carrie didn't know she had ever been declared not my daughter by the court at my behest, so it seemed funny to her when the judge asked if she wanted me to be her daddy. I was so proud of her, though she couldn't understand why. She was just happy when I told her I loved her as she hugged me as her adopted father for the first time. I was glad Michael was also there, but even more grateful that Mari wasn't. Neither Michael nor Carrie really understood what was happening, but Carrie is now legally my daughter, even if we don't share DNA. When I saw Mari cheating, it instantly removed all love I ever had for her. Until I was able to reunite with Carrie, I was afraid that because of what her mother did, I would lose all love for her as well or resent her. To still feel that love I always had for her again was such a relief. I wouldn't have been in the wrong if I couldn't get past that, no matter what anyone wants to say. If paternity matters enough to the legal system to force a man to pay for a child that is his, it also matters enough for a man to not be able to accept a child that isn't. But damn it, I really needed Carrie in my life. I'd lost too much already, and she needed a dad who had loved her for her entire lifetime. If I'm honest, there will always be a tiny part of my soul that remains broken because she is not my biological daughter. I cannot put into words how devastating it was to find out and accept that. Still, I know I am doing the very best I can as a parent in this situation. I believe time spent with children in love is far more important than anything any parent could buy them, so that will always be my focus. Aside from Mari's mental issues, there was truly no reason for the divorce not to be finalized. She wasn't getting a penny from me, and even her own lawyer admitted that, in her situation, she had no hope of getting any custody at that time. If and when she got out of her padded cell and found a safe place to live, she could petition the court for some type of visitation and custody. The court appointed a legal aide to vouch for Mari's awareness of her situation. Her lawyer got her to sign the divorce papers with witnesses and had them notarized. I had to show up in court with Nadia a week later for the attorneys to get the judge to finalize some issues. 2 weeks later, I was legally divorced, freed from the biggest mistake and waste of my life. I should have been happy about that, and I was. Signing the papers was the symbolic nail in the coffin of our marriage. Yet it all felt anticlimactic somehow. It amazed me how well Mari's family stuck to their guns in regard to disowning her after they found out everything she'd done. I'm sure some of that was due to wanting to stay on my good side so they could visit with the kids. Even though her parents and sister knew she was in the psych ward, they never even attempted a visit, nor did I. It was apparent from the times I talked to her parents how disgusted they were by their daughter's depravity. They were embarrassed for people to know what their daughter had become. I could empathize and sympathize, knowing Mari had been run through more times than an oscillating lawn sprinkler in July. It made me ashamed to admit I had ever been intimate with her. Mandy made sure to let everyone know what her sister and Rebecca had been doing, short of paternity fraud, of course. Between social media and face-to-face conversations with friends, news about Mari's years of cheating and sexual immorality got out within a month. Nearly everybody knew, and they all made plans to give her hell if they ever encountered her again. It was slightly humiliating for me to have everyone know how foolishly trusting I had been. At the end of the day, in a relationship, you either trust or you don't, and she'd never given me a single reason not to trust her. It wasn't until a few months before I caught her that I even considered she could ever cheat. In hindsight, I missed a few red flags, but she covered her tracks well. I should have put an end to the girls' nights out, obviously, just out of principle. That night she stayed out all night was the first and only time that had ever happened. She would usually call if she was going to be 15 minutes late, which was extremely rare. I was genuinely worried because that was so unlike her, and I wanted to make sure she was safe. I know many people probably think I'm an idiot or blind for not knowing for so long. By keeping things strictly sexual and limiting the number of encounters with each man, she never developed any trails to follow. She wasn't glued to her phone or protective of it, and I never felt the desire to snoop. She portrayed herself as the beautiful, loving wife and mother. I wasn't the only one deceived. Many friends told me face to face they were shocked to learn she was cheating and would have told me if they'd known. They had no idea any more than I did. If Mari had worn a dress with no panties on a windy day, and everyone within 40 feet could hear the ocean, that would have been obvious to me and everyone else. But everything she represented to everyone was a total lie. They wanted nothing to do with her, and nobody cared if she was kept in the ward for the rest of her life. The only problem with no one having contact with Mari was that it left us blindsided. Nobody alerted us when they decided to let her out. Laws prevented the hospital from letting us know about Mari's release due to doctor-patient confidentiality. I had no idea if she had convinced the doctor she was okay, or if they felt they had done all they could to help her, but they released her on a Tuesday just before noon. She somehow made her way from the hospital to her car, which was parked at her lawyer's office behind his home. From there, she drove to the kids' school. When she was informed that she couldn't see or check the kids out of school, she made enough of a scene that the school called me. I told them to call the police and that I would be there as fast as I could. On the way to my car, I called Mandy to let her know her baby sister was no longer using her Airbnb accommodations on Insanity Island. I told her I had no idea if Mari had been released or escaped, but I'd find out when I got to the school. Mandy said she would call their parents, my parents, and Doug to keep them posted. By the time I arrived, 2 police cars and an ambulance were parked out front with lights flashing. I pulled into a parking spot, got out, and headed toward the closest officer. After identifying myself as the ex-husband, he directed me through a side door, which ended up being the school cafeteria. I was relieved to learn that no one had alerted Michael or Carrie to the drama in the front office and that school had not recessed. The police had Mari seated at a cafeteria table, and when she saw me, she tried to stand and demanded to see her children. They kept her from approaching me, and I asked if they had checked with the hospital mental health ward to see if they had released her. The police informed me that, while the hospital couldn't release certain information without a warrant, they had released her under her own cognition. Mari started crying and insisted on seeing her children. I told the cop I had full custody, and there was no way in hell she was seeing them in such a frantic emotional state. She yelled at me that she wanted to see her kids, but I replied that she could have her lawyer file paperwork for visitation. Unless I saw an evaluation from a mental health professional saying otherwise, she was an unfit parent and a manic mother. She claimed the kids were the only 2 people alive who still loved her, and I told her that was probably true, but they were just kids, and they didn't know any better. The cop laughed, then managed to regain his composure. She tried to come at me, but he held her back. She said she hadn't seen her children in months, and that they were the only thing that got her through her time in lobotomy land. I explained that I really didn't care about her struggle to cope with the consequences of her actions, but I would not subject our children to her lies and drama that day. I told the cop I wanted to file a restraining order against her to keep her away from me and the kids. He agreed to file the initial paperwork on my behalf, but a judge would have to determine if one was needed and sign it. He then explained to Mari that, since I wasn't going to allow her to see the kids, they had already talked to the principal of the school, and she needed to leave immediately and not return until she could show a court order granting her partial custody. To my surprise, she didn't make an even bigger scene. I guess she realized nothing she could do at that moment would get her what she wanted. She grabbed her purse and keys before being escorted by an officer to her car. She got in and drove away while the other cop and I filled out the restraining order form on his tablet and talked with the principal. Soon enough, the kids got out of school, and I loaded up Michael and Carrie to take them home. I was about 2 miles from the school when I thought I saw Mari's car pull out from a fast food restaurant just after we passed by. I took the next right, then the next right, and the next right until I was back on the same street. I could see Mari's car up ahead, so I sped up to figure out what she was doing. She was oblivious to the fact that I had maneuvered my way behind her. It was obvious she was looking for someone, and that very person was observing her. Thankfully, a friend had urged me to get front and rear cameras with audio recorders installed in my vehicles. That gave me all the evidence I needed to prove Mari was stalking me and the kids, even after being warned by the cops to stay away. I went straight to the police station and showed the magistrate footage of Mari waiting for us to pass by, pulling out, and then losing us. She assured me the evidence would be submitted to the case judge, and I should hear back soon about being granted the restraining order. 2 days later, while I was at work, I got a call from the police saying the restraining order had been filed and served that morning. They told me she was to stay 200 yards away from me and the children at all times, and was forbidden from contacting me or the kids in any possible way except through her attorney. I was directed to call the police immediately if she violated the order. I felt some relief knowing that I had the law on my side, but I fully expected her to ignore the restraining order and try to contact me or the kids. To my surprise, nobody heard anything from Mari. Her sister said Mari hadn't tried to contact her or their parents. I fully expected her to seek some type of free legal assistance to file for partial custody, but no one ever contacted Nadia. 2 months went by, and honestly, the longer we went without hearing from her or about her, the more unnerving it became. But about 3 months ago, when I got home, there was a large manila envelope in the mail. The address was handwritten, and the return address only said, Sydney, Australia. The postage was Australian. I couldn't imagine who had sent the envelope or why, but inside was an extremely long letter from Mari explaining where she was and assuring me she wouldn't be coming back. I was stunned to receive the letter, considering the postmark was from so far away and who it was from. The things she said in the letter left me even more astounded by her evil, hedonistic rationale that allowed her to sleep at night. Her maniacal manifesto filled in many of the gaps about what she had endured and what led her to this point. She explained that she essentially had a nervous breakdown during her initial therapy session. For the first 2 months she was hospitalized. She was heavily sedated and on various antidepressants and antipsychotic medications. At the time, she said she just wanted to die. Through therapy and group discussions, she attempted to talk through her issues to understand why she did what she did. She noted that the other patients in the group kept looking at her like she was a complete idiot for throwing everything away. They came from broken homes, abusive relationships, backgrounds filled with substance abuse and violence. In contrast, her life had been as easy as pie compared to their struggles. When it finally clicked in her warped mind how badly she'd screwed up and that none of her old life was coming back, she had another breakdown. Her first breakdown was due to facing her past. The second was due to facing her future, or lack thereof. She went on to explain her feelings of loss and heartache in some half-hearted attempt to garner sympathy. Mari had the audacity to claim that the morning I caught her cheating, what upset her was knowing I instantly didn't love her anymore and never would again. She asserted that over the years, whenever she felt guilt for what she was doing, she rationalized it by telling herself that I wouldn't love her if I knew what she was doing. She wanted me to always love her. She was right. It instantly killed all I ever had for her the moment I saw her naked with another man. She said that to know I truly no longer loved her broke her heart because, despite everything she did, she still loved me. She swore that just because she'd had sex with all those men didn't mean she ever loved me any less. I hated to think about how she would have treated me if she had hated my guts. Mari had the audacity to call me her best friend and soulmate. She claimed she had no desire to have any romantic connection with anyone but me. She said that having men openly tell her they wanted to do nothing more than bang her brains out, while giving herself over to her primal instincts without a care in the world about the consequences, was such a rush. She confessed that after cheating a few times, Becca convinced her that humans were never meant to be monogamous. She claimed she would have been more than willing to let me have sex with other women, but she knew I'd never want that. She said being able to hook up with some guy she met at the store and then be home to make dinner made being just a mom and wife feel less hopeless and mundane. She tried to quantify that I somehow benefited from her having other sexual partners because it taught her to be a better lover when she was with me. I would have far preferred a completely dead bedroom than being married to a wannabe sorority girl with a stamp of the word next and an arrow pointing down. What kind of guy would stick his dick inside any woman that gave it up that easily? Those guys are just worthless too. Next time, go break one off instead of helping to break up a family. Call me old-fashioned. I'm sure many people who have read my story have called me that and far worse. But if you feel you need to explore your sexuality and be wild, that is your decision. You are completely entitled to do it. It seems today very few don't live their lives that way. However, the time to explore and hook up is long before you have children, before you marry, and certainly long before you reach the point of cheating on your husband with so many men that you give birth to some stranger's child and tell your husband he's the father. If going out and being wild turns you into someone, or something only the most desperate man would ever consider making a commitment to, so be it. If at any point while we were dating Mari had told me she needed to break up so she could go get laid by random plumbers she just met, I would have been totally fine with it. That would have told me she lacked the morality, loyalty, and trustworthiness I wanted in a wife. If she had revealed who and what she was while we were dating, it all could have been avoided. I wouldn't have cared one bit who or how many men she had sex with, as long as I wasn't one of them. She was either always unworthy of my time and love, or became unworthy through her unforgivable actions. Just as she can't undo what she did, I can't go back in time and keep her out of my life. Words be damned. Her actions have proved she is unworthy of anyone's time, and certainly not of love. She will end up a last call lay at some dive bar down under, allowing anyone drunk enough to still find her attractive to get their rocks off for 15 minutes of companionship. She wrote about how much it broke her heart to get the petition notice that I was having my name removed from Carrie's birth certificate. Mari said she understood that I couldn't even stand to look at her anymore after what she'd done, and that our daughter was just a reminder of that. What hurt her even more was when she received my petition to adopt Carrie as my daughter, because it showed her that even though I could never give her a second chance, I had enough love in my heart to give a second chance to the very product of her infidelity. She said she struggled with feelings of jealousy toward Carrie, knowing her kids would grow up receiving all the amenities she took for granted. It killed her. Frankly, her words spoke volumes about how truly self-centered she was. She couldn't think of me and put me first. She couldn't even do that with her own children. Yet, she hated knowing that huge moments of her kids' lives would happen without her around to see them. She imagined pictures shared on social media reminding her of what she was missing, feeling like she'd been stabbed through the heart. She explained that when she was released after the events at the school that day, she spent that night trying to reconnect with old friends. The few people that would speak to her were very direct about what they thought and that they wanted nothing to do with her. Most acted as if they didn't know her and just ignored her. A few warned her that if they ever found out she'd been with their husband or boyfriend, God help her. But she realized her hometown had turned against her. Her former boss and many coworkers knew what she'd done, so there was no going back to her job. The other driver's auto insurance had given her a decent check each month to live on until she was locked away. But she had to stop going to physical therapy, and the insurance company considered the matter of the accident and her injuries a closed case. With no money, getting a job close enough to potentially see the kids wasn't happening quickly, and she had to survive on her own. She pawned a few items to get by while looking for jobs online, and that's when she said she met some guy from Australia online. She explained that she essentially had a nervous breakdown during her initial therapy session. For the first 2 months she was hospitalized, she was heavily sedated and on various antidepressants and antipsychotic medications. At the time, she said she just wanted to die. Through therapy and group discussions, she attempted to talk through her issues to understand why she did what she did. She noted that the other patients in the group kept looking at her like she was a complete idiot for throwing everything away. They came from broken homes, abusive relationships, backgrounds filled with substance abuse and violence. In contrast, her life had been as easy as pie compared to their struggles. When it finally clicked in her warped mind how badly she'd screwed up and that none of her old life was coming back, she had another breakdown. Her first breakdown was due to facing her past. The second was due to facing her future, or lack thereof. She went on to explain her feelings of loss and heartache in some half-hearted attempt to garner sympathy. Mari had the audacity to claim that the morning I caught her cheating, what upset her was knowing I instantly didn't love her anymore and never would again. She asserted that over the years, whenever she felt guilt for what she was doing, she rationalized it by telling herself that I wouldn't love her if I knew what she was doing. She wanted me to always love her. She was right. It instantly killed all I ever had for her the moment I saw her naked with another man. She said that to know I truly no longer loved her broke her heart because, despite everything she did, she still loved me. She swore that just because she'd had sex with all those men didn't mean she ever loved me any less. I hated to think about how she would have treated me if she had hated my guts. Mari had the audacity to call me her best friend and soulmate. She claimed she had no desire to have any romantic connection with anyone but me. She said that having men openly tell her they wanted to do nothing more than bang her brains out, while giving herself over to her primal instincts without a care in the world about the consequences, was such a rush. She confessed that after cheating a few times, Becca convinced her that humans were never meant to be monogamous. She claimed she would have been more than willing to let me have sex with other women, but she knew I'd never want that. She said being able to hook up with some guy she met at the store and then be home to make dinner made being just a mom and wife feel less hopeless and mundane. She tried to quantify that I somehow benefited from her having other sexual partners because it taught her to be a better lover when she was with me. I would have far preferred a completely dead bedroom than being married to a wannabe sorority girl with a stamp of the word next and an arrow pointing down. What kind of guy would stick his dick inside any woman that gave it up that easily? Those guys are just worthless too. Next time, go break one off instead of helping to break up a family. Call me old-fashioned. I'm sure many people who have read my story have called me that and far worse. But if you feel you need to explore your sexuality and be wild, that is your decision. You are completely entitled to do it. It seems today very few don't live their lives that way. However, the time to explore and hook up is long before you have children, before you marry, and certainly long before you reach the point of cheating on your husband with so many men that you give birth to some stranger's child and tell your husband he's the father. If going out and being wild turns you into someone, or something only the most desperate man would ever consider making a commitment to, so be it. If at any point while we were dating Mari had told me she needed to break up so she could go get laid by random plumbers she just met, I would have been totally fine with it. That would have told me she lacked the morality, loyalty, and trustworthiness I wanted in a wife. If she had revealed who and what she was while we were dating, it all could have been avoided. I wouldn't have cared one bit who or how many men she had sex with, as long as I wasn't one of them. She was either always unworthy of my time and love, or became unworthy through her unforgivable actions. Just as she can't undo what she did, I can't go back in time and keep her out of my life. Words be damned. Her actions have proved she is unworthy of anyone's time, and certainly not of love. She will end up a last call lay at some dive bar down under, allowing anyone drunk enough to still find her attractive to get their rocks off for 15 minutes of companionship. She wrote about how much it broke her heart to get the petition notice that I was having my name removed from Carrie's birth certificate. Mari said she understood that I couldn't even stand to look at her anymore after what she'd done, and that our daughter was just a reminder of that. What hurt her even more was when she received my petition to adopt Carrie as my daughter, because it showed her that even though I could never give her a second chance, I had enough love in my heart to give a second chance to the very product of her infidelity. She said she struggled with feelings of jealousy toward Carrie, knowing her kids would grow up receiving all the amenities she took for granted. It killed her. Frankly, her words spoke volumes about how truly self-centered she was. She couldn't think of me and put me first. She couldn't even do that with her own children. Yet, she hated knowing that huge moments of her kids' lives would happen without her around to see them. She imagined pictures shared on social media reminding her of what she was missing, feeling like she'd been stabbed through the heart. She explained that when she was released after the events at the school that day, she spent that night trying to reconnect with old friends. The few people that would speak to her were very direct about what they thought and that they wanted nothing to do with her. Most acted as if they didn't know her and just ignored her. A few warned her that if they ever found out she'd been with their husband or boyfriend, God help her. But she realized her hometown had turned against her. Her former boss and many coworkers knew what she'd done, so there was no going back to her job. The other driver's auto insurance had given her a decent check each month to live on until she was locked away. But she had to stop going to physical therapy, and the insurance company considered the matter of the accident and her injuries a closed case. With no money, getting a job close enough to potentially see the kids wasn't happening quickly, and she had to survive on her own. She pawned a few items to get by while looking for jobs online, and that's when she said she met some guy from Australia online. It seems they chatted back and forth over the course of a few days, and he invited her for a visit. She had already been seriously thinking of cashing in her 401k but was scared about the huge tax penalty at the end of the year. The invite to Australia was all it took for her to cash in the only chip she had. She said he's a really nice guy and has a son who needs a mom. Poor kid is getting Joan Crawford for a mom, and he's getting Amber for his wife. It's safe to say he has no idea what she's done and what she's capable of. She's his problem now. She'll become an Australian citizen, won't have to pay the IRS, and she will never be my problem again. That was the last contact she made, and I hope it will be the final contact she ever has with me, fingers crossed. Part of me thinks she heard Australia was founded as a penal colony and thought they said penile, but if it keeps that crazy hooker down under and out of my hair, she can do whatever she wants. I hate to be so flippant because I do sympathize with the citizens of Australia as yet another venomous species becomes endemic to their ecosystem. But these are the ignominies you have to face as a people for mocking planetary gravity generation after generation. Yes, I'm giddy that she's gone, and I have every right to be. But Australia, sincerely, thoughts and prayers, you may want to get some of those guns back. Between providing antipsychotic medication and treating STDs, she may bankrupt your entire socialized medical system. Obviously, I hope she stays away, but a potential arrest upon return for tax evasion, with the punishment being time served in federal prison, will hopefully seal the deal. My therapist has helped me quite a bit, especially in dealing with anger, though I'm sure no one reading this could tell. My therapist and I came to an epiphany during one heated session. For the longest time, I was far angrier at myself than I was at Mari. People talk about forgiveness and how it sets a person free. I had so much anger built up inside that I just assumed 100% of it was directed toward Mari. Nope. It turns out, despite her flaws and missteps, I held myself to a higher ethical standard. I was beating myself up with self-loathing because I couldn't believe I'd chosen so poorly. Yes, Mari was the deceitful liar, but at the end of the day, I chose that and messed up my own life. I can say without a doubt I would be much better off having never loved Mari, and that Lord Alfred Tennyson was an idiot. Lots of people asked about Rebecca. I found out that after Mari was kicked out of her parents' house, she did, in fact, go to Rebecca's. Apparently, my ex thought Becca owed her a place to stay at the very least after contributing to our marriage failing. Rebecca seemed to feel like all she had done was enable Mari to do what she actually wanted to do and didn't owe her a damn thing. It's an interesting debate topic, one that apparently got heated. I have no idea who won, but that friendship ended with a lot of hair-pulling, profanity, and punching. Either way, word got out that Rebecca had been involved in destroying my marriage, and things got rough for her. I don't use any social media. No, I don't consider Reddit social media, but I'm told she was unfollowed, unfriended, and harassed online. In real life, 2 stylists quit her salon due to what she'd done. The ones that remained had customers asking how they could still work there, or if they'd changed salons too. It took a month or 2 until she couldn't pay the lease and had to close up shop. The last anyone heard, Rebecca was working at her brother's restaurant in Connecticut as a hostess. When she left town, I wanted to have her condo bulldozed like Forrest Gump did to Jenny's childhood home due to all the heinous sex acts that occurred there, but the neighbors in the other 2 units weren't too keen on that idea. Quite a few people insinuated in comments that there was chemistry or something going on with my lawyer, Nadia, and me. I thought they'd been doing meth. Turns out I am as oblivious as ever when a woman is interested. After the divorce was finalized, since she wasn't representing me in the civil suit that never happened, I went for drinks with her and several others in the practice to celebrate. As others left one by one, she said she had to talk to me about one more matter before I left. I assumed she was going to ask for a good review on the practice's website or something. She surprised me by telling me that after working on my case, she truly appreciated how loyal and dedicated I had been to my wife and still am to my kids. She admitted that over the course of the divorce, she'd grown attracted to me but couldn't say anything since she had been my lawyer. She confessed I was very hard to read and she couldn't tell if I had any attraction toward her at all, but she knew a good man when she saw one and she was going to shoot her shot. It was flattering to hear, especially after learning I wasn't enough for my wife not to cheat with enough men to field 5 football teams. Nadia even told me long before I gave her a well-deserved huge bonus check that she was being sincere in what she said. She just told me if I ever wanted to go out and have a drink or talk, to give her a call. Nadia is a beautiful woman. I don't think any guys could refute that, except for the visually impaired ones. She's brilliant and genuinely talented, and she has her life together. It's pretty obvious she goes to the gym quite frequently. Lawyers like to look good in the courtroom. She dresses classy and sexy, which the gentleman in me appreciates. At one hearing, when she came into court in a pinstriped suit, I'm fairly certain the judge would have granted me custody of his kids after he saw her. Even as jaded as I might be, I have to admit she would be a fantastic catch for any guy she chose to date. But for me, that or any other potential relationship is just not worth the squeeze. I already know I would subconsciously judge her for her past, which she certainly does not deserve and can do nothing about. Unfortunately, any woman I felt an inkling of interest in would be subject to that same unfair judgment. I had plenty of dudes message me and urge me to go on a dating app and hook up with some random just to get past the fact that Mari is still the only woman I've been with. Sorry to the guys who will be disappointed to hear that, but I could never do that. A friend showed me the local Tinder prospects, but I will not be downloading the app. If I had any desire to get my second bedpost notch out of the way, as one message suggested, I would have gone the naughtier route. It pisses me off knowing Mari took something I used to really enjoy and removed that activity from my life forever. Now just thinking back to our past moments of intimacy makes my skin crawl, knowing she was doing those very same things, and far more debased, with many other men. In the eyes of most people in Western society today, the fact that I've only been with one woman would either make me appear prudish or hard up. Yet I feel as filthy as a Victorian streetwalker just at the knowledge I had sex with Mari. She took everything that made sex special to me and made it impossible for me to experience again. Our exclusivity, our vows, our union were pissed away so she could experience sucking a random that didn't belong to her husband. And then she lied. Oh my God, did she lie? Because she lied, for the longest time. I'd think back to any positive thing she ever said about me and believe it to be a lie too. Just because she said it, she made me doubt my sanity, my parenting, my strength, and my worth. I don't want to ever go back to that. I won't go back to that. I have no one, and yet I'm still living. That proves there isn't a woman out there I can't live without. I'm already doing it. I have no hate for women at all and want the best for them because Carrie will be a woman someday. But there is absolutely nothing any woman on this planet has that would enrich my life in the least. Only complicated. If there are some women who feel that way about men, there should be human beings, both male and female, who are a scourge upon each other, not worth the time and energy and not to be trusted. Many people ask questions pertaining to finding Carrie's biological father. I have done quite a bit of research into DNA ancestry sites. My biggest issue is that if there is an existing match, the company could also alert the other person if Carrie took a test that revealed a cousin, an uncle, or even her dad. I'm her protector. I don't want anyone coming looking. She's a healthy child with no apparent genetic defects, so I'm going to wait quite a while to do any testing. My mindset as of this day is to wait until her mid to late teens at the very least, but I could envision waiting until her 20s to let her make the decision. Honestly, I've also considered never telling her I'm not her father. Truly, if there is any advice I could still use from Reddit, it would be questioning, at the end of the day, what would truly be best for Carrie. Do you think never telling her now after all that has happened would be a good or bad thing? Should I wait until she is a teen or an adult at 18 to tell her and begin the search? I'm not worried about myself. I already know the truth. I'm trying to prepare for any future scenarios, both good and bad. How likely is it that she will have some medical condition that requires her to know her paternal medical history? Please note that any DNA genealogy testing will likely happen several years down the line at the earliest. With her mom out of her life so recently, I don't want to do anything that could make her feel less secure, safe, and confident in her own identity and mine. It's odd to find myself in this situation and sincerely hope both kids take after their fathers. In closing, I want to thank Reddit user Kranik in particular for the advice given to me throughout my ordeal. You probably aren't 187 years old, but even if you are wise far beyond your years. You were able to analyze my ex and predict the angles I was leaving open for her to attack. When you said she was desperate, I believed you. But in the end, Mari literally found out the hard way. Thank you for assisting me in every way to help her find out. And to all the others who pointed me in the right direction or sent me encouraging messages, I thank each of you. My plan is to post this, wait half a day, and maybe respond to a few comments over a period of a few days, then my story will officially be done. I rarely even think about Mari anymore because I stay so busy in my new life without her, and I don't want to dwell on what has happened for more than a couple of days. My kids are my world, and I actually love my job, which keeps me busy. The pay is just a bonus for being allowed to do something I enjoy. To any Australians reading this, I hope I didn't offend you in any way. That was not my intent at all. I hate being the bearer of bad news for your nation as a whole. You didn't deserve this any more than I did. Just remember, if she gets drunk wearing a skirt with no underwear and does a split in one of your bars one night, gently rock her back and forth to break the suction, and she'll pop right up. To all those who took the time to read, I thank you and wish you a good day or night. To those who didn't, I'll try to keep this short. I had a session with my therapist today at lunch, and I sent her the post to read what I wrote in all the comments. She absolutely loved you people for nudging me towards something with Nadia. She urged me to take it slowly but be honest with her and myself. So, when I got out of my session, I called Nadia and asked if I could drop by to get her expert opinion on a few things. After dropping the kids off at their grandparents', I stopped by the firm to talk to her again. I have no game because I never had to develop one. I don't know how to flirt. I'm just me. All I have is kindness, humor, and sincerity. When she realized I had no legal issues I needed to discuss, she got a big grin on her face. I told her I'd been doing a lot of thinking and talking with friends since our last conversation. I told her I am 100% scared as hell to open up and give her a chance, but I'm also 100% sure I need to man up since she was woman enough to shoot her shot. I mentioned that I couldn't envision how things would work out because of our differences, and when she inquired about those, I talked about the kids and the fact that she isn't a mom yet. She said she had enjoyed meeting my kids and asked if I had issues with her not being a mom. I assured her I didn't, but I expressed a little concern about her being so petite and me being so tall, fearing I might accidentally hurt her because of my clumsiness. She promised me she was pretty tough and said big things come in small packages. I was nervous and replied that I wasn't looking to have sex just yet, but appreciated the offer. She blushed and laughed really hard. So at least she gets my warped humor. Long story short, we both have Friday and Monday off due to the holiday weekend. So Thursday night, I will take her to a nice restaurant for dinner, and then we'll go to a fantastic martini bar I know of. It's a first step, and while I am nervous, I do feel very comfortable talking to her and being around her. We're going to take things slowly. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.